Heaven's Eyes, an audiobook by Brewing with artwork by MandelDraws. Chapter 1. No Nightingales. Oh, well, I'd had to think about it. Return to heaven? Well, he couldn't deny he felt that familiar pull towards it. But he was also tethered on earth, happy here. He had his bookshop, he had friends, he had Crowley. Yes, he could never leave Crowley, nor would he want to. Ah, well, that demon friend of yours. He could come with us, you know. He could be your second in command, Metatron enticed. This took Aziraphale off guard. Crowley could come to heaven with him? He often saw Crowley's innocent face from when they met in his dreams. For a while, he'd assumed that's all they were, dreams. But could that version of Crowley really return? No, Crowley wouldn't want this. I'm afraid he'd be rather impartial to— You see that sign over there, Aziraphale? Metatron interrupted, gesturing to Nina's coffee shop. Nina's coffee shop? Yes, I do rather like it there. No, the sign. Give me coffee or give me death. An odd name, don't you think? Metatron had a curious expression on his face, yet there was malice hidden under it. Aziraphale suddenly tense. I suppose so. Suddenly, the coffee in his hands felt a lot heavier. Should he have drunk it? He felt sick. Funny. You should understand it well, Aziraphale. His eyes met the angel's. Since, after all, this is what I am proposing. Coffee or death. Surely you wouldn't. Metatron smiled in mirth as if someone had just told him a rather amusing joke. Oh no, don't be silly. Of course I wouldn't know. This is God's plan after all. You and that demon are just in the way. Quite frankly, you have both sinned. You honestly deserve a much worse punishment. However, in heaven, we could make use of you. You could be part of God's plan again. Otherwise, well, we'd have to stop you interfering. Aziraphale felt tense and thoroughly on edge. This was cruel. He and Crowley were meant to carve out their futures together, find their own little space in the vast, vast world. Perhaps there was a way he could have still gone to heaven after this, but proposed a deal, a way he could still visit Crowley in his bookshop whilst making a heaven Crowley would want to see. But Metatron was right. They had sinned, gone against God's plan. Even if he was in a morally grey area, even if he had changed, it was still wrong. What if I were to come alone? Crowley has a strong opinion on heaven. I doubt even I could convince him to come along. Metatron sighed, pursing his lips. Well, if Crowley refuses to come to heaven, I'm afraid he'd be out of our jurisdiction. However, I suppose if you were to stay in heaven and have no contact with him, that may suffice. But you'd have to swear not to visit him, else our deal would be broken. I am only offering you this position, Aziraphale, because I still believe in you. We wouldn't want this trust to be broken, would we, dear fellow? Aziraphale hid his hands under the table as they began to tremble. This would really hurt Crowley. This would mean the end of their bond, and only God knows what he'd be used for in heaven. But this was Crowley. Crowley, who had saved him countless times, who had risked his own life to save Aziraphale's so many times. Crowley, who had burnt his feet in a church just to rescue this stupid angel. Crowley, who it was his turn now to protect. I'm sorry, Crowley, my dear. It seems you won't be able to rescue me this time. All right, I agree to your terms. Just promise me you won't hurt Crowley. Metatron smiled. Why, of course I won't, as long as you follow these terms. Now, Aziraphale, why don't you finish your coffee? Aziraphale obliged. This is how things would be from now on. He matched Metatron's gaze, bringing the warm liquid to his lips. It was bitter. Stay calm, aziraphale. Stay calm. He shifted his face to a smile. He could try and convince Crowley to leave Crowley alone. He couldn't bear it. And, deep down, he knew he could not bear heaven without Crowley beside him. But when he stepped in, he felt as if there were a lump in his throat. Still, he feigned excitement. Look, I suppose, I've got something to say. Oh. Oh no. It wasn't really... No, he was overthinking. Surely. I know we ought to be talking about... It's probably best if I start off doing all the talking, you do all the listening, because if I don't start talking now, I won't ever start talking, right? No, this couldn't continue. He couldn't handle that now. Luckily, his restlessness seemed to come across as excitement, as Crowley didn't seem to notice anything. What's that lovely human expression? Oh yes, hold that thought. He could see Crowley's change in expression. But the bitter taste of coffee was a constant reminder of how things would go if he didn't do this. Aziraphale began to recount his talk with Metatron, conveniently leaving out the part where his and Crowley's lives were threatened. No, he couldn't let Crowley carry the burden of this. He had sinned. He would take responsibility, and he'd be damned if Crowley suffered for it. And you told him where he could stick it then? Ah. He knew this was the likely outcome. He knew it. Yet the words didn't sting any less. Not at all. Well, regardless. He wasn't expecting Crowley to deny it quickly. Oh, we're better than that. You're better than that, Angel. You don't need them. I certainly don't need them. Look, they asked me back to hell. I said no. I'm not going to be joining their team. Neither should you. They didn't need it, no. But their opinions weren't the only ones involved anymore. He had learnt now you cannot just ignore heaven or hell. No, they'd come for you. But, well, obviously you said no to hell. You're the bad guys. But heaven, well, it's the side of truth, of light, of good. He was beginning to doubt his own words. Tell me you said no. Crowley seemed desperate, pleading. Tell me you said no. Oh, Crowley, I wish I could have. If I'm in charge, I can make a difference. It was his only hope. And with Metatron looming over him like that, he had little chance of making a difference. Still, he couldn't help but plead. Oh, God, right, okay. No, this couldn't happen now. It just couldn't. We've known each other a long time. We've been on this planet for a long time. I mean, you and me. No. No, 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 not like this. Not in this moment. Don't make it hurt more, Crowley. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. I could always rely on you. You could always rely on me. We're a team, a group. Group of the two of us. And we spent our existence pretending that we aren't. There was a nervous edge to Crowley's voice now. Aziraphale subtly tensed his fist at his side. He was right. They'd spent their entire existence pretending. So why now? Why couldn't they pretend for just one more moment? I mean, the last few years, not really. And I would like to spend... Oh, Crowley. He had paused for a moment, clearly agitated, unable to convey what he wanted to. But what hurt most was that no matter how he wanted to, Aziraphale could not say it, either. I mean, if Gabriel and Beelzebub can do it, go off together, then we can. Just the two of us. We don't need heaven, we don't need hell, they're toxic. We need to get away from them, just be and us. You and me, what do you say? Ah. How simple Crowley saw the world. Of course he wanted to run off with Crowley. But Earth was precious, too. So many things he loved, his bookshop, the Bentley, the Ritz. And what made them even more precious is that they all reminded him of Crowley. He couldn't leave that, even if he wasn't being held at book point. Come with me, to heaven. I'll run it, you can be my second in command. We can make a difference. He knew this had to happen. He knew it. But it still hurt endlessly. You can't leave this bookshop. Oh, Crowley. Nothing lasts forever. No, it didn't. And he was foolish for thinking he could enjoy this peace much longer. With heaven and hell always watching them? No, it would always come down to this. No. No, I don't suppose it does. Good luck. Good luck? Crowley! This was it. This was it. But oh, this couldn't be it. He couldn't do this alone. His facade of an excitable angel broke away until he was just a hurt, desperate soul. Crowley, come back to heaven. Work with me. We can be together. Angels, doing good. Please, Crowley. I need to know you'll be safe. I need to stay by your side. I need you. And there it was. No, this was too desperate. He couldn't let it slip like that. Crowley, please understand. Understand that I need you there with me. Understand that even if I can't, you can fix heaven. That you are so brilliant that you just might do it. I don't think you understand what I'm offering you. I understand. I think I understand a whole lot better than you do. If only you knew. Well, then there's nothing left to say. His eyes shone with unshed tears. For Crowley, this was goodbye, but he didn't realize what kind of goodbye. A truly final goodbye. He knew as Crowley walked away, this was likely the last time he'd see the one he loved so dearly. Listen. Do you hear that? I don't hear anything. No nightingales. No nightingales. That night at the Ritz. Crowley remembered it. There really would be no more nightingales. You idiot. We could have been... Ah, you have no idea how much I wished it were that way. But then he was taken off guard. Crowley was kissing him so intensely, so passionately. He knew he had to go to heaven, but oh, what was more angelic than this? He felt desperate for that feeling, yearning he had felt for 6,000 years in one moment. For a moment, his resolve melted. He could stay here. They'd figure it out. They'd burn the book or whatever. They'd stay here forever and ever and... No. This time, they couldn't win. This wasn't Crowley's fault. Crowley deserved to be treated better. Crowley deserved to be happy, even without Aziraphale. I forgive you, Crowley sighed, adding two sharp, agonizing words before he left. Don't bother. Ah. The angel's words had already lost their weight on Crowley. Oh well. This was for the best. Yet still, he guiltily raised his fingers to his lips, savoring the last taste of heaven he'd truly get. Goodbye, Crowley. He turned to the door opening once more, and for a moment, his heart filled with hope. Had Crowley returned? Was going to come to heaven with him? They were going to be... Metatron. Oh, did he take it? Not well, he half laughed to himself. That was one way to put it. Ah, well, always did want to go his own way. Always asking damn fool questions, too. Right. Ready to start? Aziraphale wanted to run, to leave, to get out of here. But he had to stay, if not for himself, for Crowley. After all, he had sinned, quite thoroughly. At least only Aziraphale had to bear the burden. Crowley would never have to know. From now on, he vowed to protect Crowley at all costs. Still, he couldn't stop his mind from wandering. But, my bookshop. Metatron showed only a glimpse of annoyance. He was good at this. Yes, well, for now I've entrusted it to Muriel, so it should be in good hands. For now. He didn't like the sound of that. But, is there anything you need to take with you? Oh, there were so many things he wished to take. His books. No, his entire shop. His special coffee mug and his collection of hot chocolate. His special pen he used for writing to his close friends, to Crowley. The phone he used to tell Crowley about something fun he did that day. The special tea set reserved only for Crowley. Crowley. Nothing at all. Aziraphale turned to see Crowley waiting at the Bentley, waiting for him to come back, apologize, tell him everything would be okay. I love you. He stepped into the lift with Metatron. Well, I can't think of a better angel to wrap things up and to set into motion the next step in the great plan. Angels always were good at flattery. Still, the next great plan. Was it a second apocalypse? He must tread carefully. He couldn't risk the Earth being destroyed like this. Can I know what it is? Well, it's something we need an angel of your talents to direct. Was that one genuine? Or was it because he was essentially going to be a puppet? An angel who was familiar with how they do things on Earth. That didn't sound good. Ah, is all he could muster. We call it the Second Coming. He forced himself to smile and act pleased as a feeble shield against what was to come. Chapter 2. Lonely. Aziraphale once thought he found comfort in the blinding white of heaven. He wasn't so sure anymore. As he walked through the corridor, he made a note of things he'd like to change if he got the chance. For example, he could use a few comfortable sofas with cozy blankets draped over them in the corridor. Oh, and there should definitely be a nice carpet along the floor. This one was much too noisy and shiny. This lighting as well. It would do much better to have lamps. Much more homely. Maybe that wasn't the best for a typical professional workplace. But this was heaven, for pity's sake. It should be warm and welcoming and Aziraphale. Metatron's voice broke his tranquility. You're not a prisoner, you know, so you don't need to look so on edge. Restricting your access to Earth is simply a precaution, you know, to keep the plan chugging ahead. You know this is all for the greater good. Indeed, perhaps it was for the greater good, but everything Aziraphale deemed really good was back on Earth. Finally, they stopped before the door. A little metallic placard was sitting against the door. Gabriel was ingrained into it in a small, neat font. Aziraphale gulped. Ah, this was meant to be cleared off when you came. Really, some angels are so lazy. Metatron swiped his hand and the placard's letter slowly changed to Aziraphale. It was in this moment that it really sunk in that this was all happening. He was trapped. He was never going to see Crowley again. It took everything within him to remain calm, to not break down. Metatron opened the door for Aziraphale. Aziraphale, on autopilot, stepped into the empty, white room. All that sat there was a simple desk and chair and a small, fake plant, a feeble attempt to make the room more welcoming. Right, I'll let you get settled down then. I took the liberty of bringing a touch of earth here for you. I understand this must be a lot to take in. I'm sure you're very proud of yourself. We'll have a meeting to reintroduce you to everyone later. Cheerio. And with that, the door closed. Aziraphale sighed. He moved to the desk, sitting on the chair. And he felt so terribly alone. All at once, grief and sadness and loss washed over him. One angelic tear fell, then another. He covered his mouth to stop the sobs escaping, as finally it was all too much. Shakingly, he reached into his jacket, pulling out the photo from their magic trick all those years ago. His hand trembled as he looked at it, before placing it against the plant pot. This was all he had now of Crowley, could ever have. A small picture could never fill the demon-sized crater left in his heart. He placed his head in his hands as he rested his elbows on the table. He couldn't stop the tears. This was wrong, 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 so wrong. How could a place so holy cause such hellish pain? He was shaken from his grief when a knock resounded at his door. Who was this? Had Metatron come back to mock him? Surely Crowley hadn't come to save him. He quickly wiped his eyes, clearing his throat in an attempt to hide his previously shed tears. His hands shook as he reached for the doorknob. I was surprised to see Muriel there. Muriel, I thought you were meant to be watching the bookshop. Yes. Well, it's night on Earth now. I'm so sorry. I know I'm a low-ranking angel and everything, but... Aziraphale smiled fondly at the innocent angel. All is well, Muriel. I'm not going to be like the other archangels. Let it be known that you may visit me whenever you need to. Muriel seemed caught off guard, but they then beamed with happiness before looking more conflicted. Oh, right, thank you. Well, I suppose it's just that you and your demon friend, well, I think you're friends, but you could be more. Do you mean to ask if we're okay? Well, we just had a rather large disagreement. All will be well in due course. He hoped he sounded believable, because quite frankly, he didn't believe it. Well, he knew it wasn't true. All in his due course was being Metatron's puppet, but Muriel, sweet Muriel, was still untainted, still wholly in whole. It's just, well, I don't mean to intrude, because obviously I'm a much lower angel, but your eyes do seem to be really red. Oh, goodness. He hadn't even thought of that. Even if he is in heaven, he was still in his human-like body. Therefore, he would be expressing emotions. Oh, you see, humans have this tradition, you see? They're often so overcome with emotion when they arrive at a new job, they simply let out some tears to expel such emotion. I've been on Earth so long, such tradition is hard to let go of, I suppose. That really was a rubbish excuse. Muriel seemed befuddled. Oh, okay, I'll keep that in mind. I should probably cry a bit at the bookshop, or else the other humans will get suspicious. I didn't know you had more than one job, though. I'd expect nothing less from Head Archangel. Ah, the bookshop. Another dagger to his already bleeding heart. At least he could trust Muriel to some extent. Now, remember, under no circumstances must you sell any of those books. Suddenly, without thinking, he added another clause. Unless it's Crowley. He can have access to the books. In fact, the whole bookshop if he wishes. Yes, this may be a good way for Crowley to vent. Whilst he cared so deeply about his books, he cared about Crowley more. Maybe Crowley could find some solace in the books, could tear them, burn any memory of Aziraphale. Yes, that was for the best. It would put Aziraphale's mind at ease, too, if his heart was unsalvageable. No worries, young one, and thank you for looking after my bookshop. Muriel was taken off guard by this. They looked rather confused. No one has ever thanked me before. Aziraphale felt a pang in his heart, but he hid it behind a smile. Well, I believe you are owed many more. I shall ensure to make it up to you. Muriel then smiled back, waving the hands in front of them. Oh, well, I wouldn't bother. I'm really nothing compared to you. Muriel. They were again caught off guard, looking up in shock at the sudden change in tone. Aziraphale's astounded expression changed into a soft one. You must never ever doubt yourself like that. You truly are a wonderful angel. Don't forget that. Muriel simply stared at Aziraphale for a few moments, stunned. They had settled as a low-ranking angel, gotten used to the lifestyle, adjusted. So why did it make them so happy to be complimented like this? Well, I'll keep that in mind, thank you. Oh, don't bother, Aziraphale replied cheerily. You really do deserve a lot more praise. Muriel nodded, still looking a little befuddled. Right, yes, definitely. Well, goodbye, good luck with all the new Archangel things. Muriel then quickly stepped out of the room, shutting the door swiftly. Strange. Even though his heart was sad for a whole number of reasons, it did feel a little warmer that he had already made a difference. Maybe he could change heaven for the better. Maybe. It was then he finally got his first idea for change. He'd rather like a suggestion box. Crowley was done. He was very, very done. Done with heaven, done with hell, done with Gabriel and Beelzebub, done with the Ritz and that damn bookshop and that damned angel, and... He suddenly pressed the brake on his Bentley as he realized he had nearly driven into a car pulling out. He smashed his hand on the steering wheel, growling. Stupid angel, nearly drove it into another car, nearly broke the Bentley. Sorry, my bad, I didn't mean to. Oh, this is all so stupid. He quickly swerved into a nearby field and placed his head on the steering wheel. He wouldn't cry over this. He was stronger than this. Stronger than any of this. And yet, somehow, the Bentley steering wheel became laden with tears. Oh, Aziraphale, why'd you have to be so stupid? Heaven would never change. He knew that. He knew that the moment his wings burnt. He was cast away as he watched his canvas of stars grow further and further away. He knew heaven had turned its back on him. He was so angry at Aziraphale. How could he trust so blindly, forgive them so easily? If not for him, at least take grievance at how heaven treated you, Aziraphale. God, this stupid, selfless angel. But no matter how broken his heart was, he couldn't deny he worried more for Aziraphale's. He could admit his own was broken, charred, burnt, crushed on, trampled, silenced, barely held together. But Aziraphale's was pure and gentle, everything heaven should be and isn't. Oh, you stupid, stupid, stupid idiot. Why did you go where I can't follow? He spent the night once more in the Bentley, but that night it felt much colder. Chapter 3. Traditions. It had been a month. A whole month since Aziraphale had left for heaven. An entire month where Aziraphale didn't spare a second thought for him, didn't even consider what Crowley had been up to. Well, he knew Aziraphale didn't match his feelings, but he was hoping Aziraphale still thought something of their time together. Even for a demon, 6,000 years was a damn long time. Perhaps he had too much work to do in heaven. After all, God did still seem set on another round of the apocalypse. But then, Aziraphale wouldn't endorse that. Regardless of the angel's feelings towards him, Aziraphale still cared deeply for Earth, for the bookshop, for the humans on it, maybe even for the Bentley. And he hoped, at least, a little bit of love was left for him, even if it didn't feel that way at the moment. That damned bookshop has never left his mind. He wanted to ignore it, forget about it, put it into the farthest pits of his mind. But he couldn't. He still remembered how Aziraphale had implied it was theirs. Part of him wondered if it had all been a ploy to get access to the Bentley. But deep down, he also knew Aziraphale wasn't like that. Wouldn't manipulate like that. No. Aziraphale was usually the one to be manipulated, and that's why he couldn't ever rest easily. He'd contemplated just sleeping the next who knows how long away, but his nerves were always on edge. Did Aziraphale really want to go to heaven? Is this really what he wanted? All these words of grandeur and praise from the Metatron, were they only used to get into Aziraphale's mind and tempt him? No, it was probably wishful thinking on Crowley's part. Aziraphale had chosen heaven over him of his own accord. That was a fact. He just had to accept it. Forget about the bookshop and the warm light and the tea set only for special occasions that was always brought out whenever he was over. The armchair with cushions Aziraphale pumped up for him, the entire bedroom he was offered, the... Damn it all! He took off the brakes, spinning out of where he was parked. The Bentley was running the smoothest it had for a while. We're not going to heaven, he scolded. Just going to the bookshop, you got it? I'm just making sure it hasn't burnt down or anything. Yet he already felt regret as soon as he approached the store. He wasn't ready to see it again, devoid of that angel he held so dear. He wasn't sure what he was expecting. It would hurt to see it lit up as if nothing had changed. But then he would also hate to see it covered in dust, the once beloved books beginning to age. As he pulled up to it, his heart skipped a beat. Why was the sign showing open? Quickly, he parked his Bentley into an open space and raced out of the car. He stepped inside the door and quickly whipped the sign over to closed. This was very out of character. Aziraphale wouldn't leave this shop like this, completely exposed. Was he right? Had heaven really manipulated him to the point of, "Hello, welcome to the bookshop. Nothing is for sale, though." Crowley turned, suddenly defensive, to see Muriel, smiling away, hands stuck to their sides. Ah. So heaven had left someone to care for the bookshop. Muriel had shown an interest in books, at least, so he supposed it made sense. "Oh, Mr. Crowley, those rules don't go for you. Aziraphale said you could have whichever ones you wanted. You don't even have to pay. He really is strange." Had he been mentioned by name? Aziraphale really had thought of him. Well, who cares? He didn't care about some measly books. He didn't care if this was some kind of peace offering. Aziraphale had already shown he didn't care about peace. What if I burnt them? He wouldn't like that, right? but that's off the table. Muriel looked thoughtful for a moment. Well, Metatron told me to look after the bookshop, but then Aziraphale said he's head archangel, so he'd take the fall for it. So you can do anything with them and the shop, I suppose, they grinned. Oh, but, well, I know it's not my place, but I'd rather you didn't. I do quite like the books. I think Aziraphale really likes them too. In the past, Muriel would never have spoken up about this. All right, I won't burn them. Bit of a waste. Muriel was surprised and then smiled. It's really odd. I'm used to being ignored, but you and Aziraphale both are so nice to me and the other low-ranking angels. Oh, but not that the other angels aren't nice. I know my place, but you two are extra nice to me. It was to be expected. Aziraphale had always been very kind. Still, he felt rather empty. Aziraphale really was thriving in heaven, making a difference. Already, Muriel and their co-workers felt the difference, and that was only in a month. Had he been wrong? No, this was heaven. They'd never really change. So what if the angels had manners? It didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. They'd still cast away their allies if they felt like it. They certainly did Crowley. Mr. Crowley, can I ask you a question about human tradition? Crowley's eyes looked over from under his shades as his melancholy thoughts were intruded. His displeasure slipped into his voice. What tradition? Muriel seemed a bit intimidated and stepped back. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude. Well, it's my fault. I didn't. Crowley sighed, placing his hands on his hips. Right, my bad and all. What is the tradition? Muriel still looked a bit anxious, but continued. Well, you see, I went to see Aziraphale one day, and I noticed he had been crying. He said it was like humans often cry when they're excited about their new tradition. Aziraphale had been crying? It should make Crowley feel better. That Aziraphale was suffering even a fraction of the pain that Crowley felt. But in all honesty, it made him feel bad. And what made it even worse was that it gave him hope. That Aziraphale still cared. That Aziraphale felt heartbreak. That Aziraphale didn't want to go to heaven. That he wanted to come back to Crowley's waiting arms and... No. It wasn't true. Or Aziraphale wouldn't have left. And he wouldn't forgive that easily. It was only then that he noticed Muriel looking at him expectantly. Ah, he's meant to respond, right? He placed a hand onto the chair, leaning against it. Well, yes, that is the common human tradition. To shed a few tears and no one will suspect you're an angel. Oh, that's not quite it. Aziraphale seems to have cried every day the whole time he's been there, in his office, when he thinks no one else is listening. So I was wondering if you're meant to cry more or less depending on your job. That means Aziraphale really enjoys being Archangel. Oh no. It was the opposite. He could handle Aziraphale being sad for a day, maybe even a week. But the fact that Aziraphale hadn't spent a day without shedding tears, it felt like something was burrowing into his heart and trying to dig into it. His heart was already too vulnerable. This wasn't fair. Aziraphale couldn't just do this and make him feel bad. Oh, this is stupid. Mr. Crowley, you're sparking. Crowley shook his head. No, he couldn't do it here. He'd destroy the bookshop. He took a few deep breaths, shaking his hands to try and vent some energy out. He strutted over to a shelf, picking up a book titled Pride and Prejudice. He shoved it at Muriel. Take this and give it to the stupid angel. He then walked out and slammed the door. Muriel was shocked. But they then placed the book on the table, making a mental note to bring it up to heaven later, before taking out a duster and cleaning the books again. Aziraphale had enough. He really had. It was all too much now. He had been so determined at the start, arrows shooting through the thick fog, but now he felt as if every arrow had severely missed its target. The suggestion box had just about gone through. Metatron was there. He supposed it was a scare tactic to make Aziraphale feel more welcome. Grudgingly, the other archangels had accepted it. In a way, he did feel a lot more welcome. He had some faith heaven would be okay. But that's about where it ended. He couldn't take any more meetings where he would just be put down and ignored, his ideas shut down. He wanted a nice yellow rug in his office. But heaven is no place for earthly possessions. Right, fine, that was annoying, but he could deal with it. So then he asked for some dimmer lights in heaven. He was starting to get a headache. But light is holy. It reminds us we are always surrounded by God. Well, that was a bit unfair. Was he allowed no comforts at all? And it had carried on like this. He was allowed no earthly possessions, no cosy decor, no tartan to go on his plain suit, not even any plants or other life up there. It was like a prison cell. And he was losing his mind. Still, at least he had the photo. Oh, the photo. Crowley. Even if he was forced to come here, he still had hope. Heaven was meant to be good and holy and everything right with the world. So why did he feel so alone? He sighed, not having the energy to cry. He was exhausted. He rested against the chair, completely out of energy. This really was ridiculous. What kind of angel was he if he could even last a month in heaven? God, why was it all so unfair? Knock, knock, knock. Ah, a knock on the door. He knew who this was. One of the only times he felt somewhat cheery in the daytime was when he got visits from his little guest. He straightened himself up, dusting down his clothes before smiling. Come in, he called out cheerily. Muriel entered the room, smiling. Hello, it's just me again. Yes, I thought it would be. Delighted as usual to see you. Muriel smiled again before sitting down and fidgeting more than usual. They were clearly excited about something. Well, you certainly seem to be in a cheery mood. Muriel grinned even wider. Yes, I am. I got to see Mr. Crowley today, and he said he wouldn't burn the bookshop. Crowley? Aziraphale lost his composure for a moment, suddenly standing up. Crowley, is he good? Is he well? Oh, I'm glad he's okay. At the bookshop, though? I wonder if he's forgiven me. I doubt it. It really was. But Aziraphale then composed himself, brushing down the front of his impeccable suit once more. Ah, sorry. I lost myself a little there. Do continue. It seems Aziraphale still has some of his human emotions intact, Muriel noted. He still cared about Crowley a lot. If the head archangel was allowed emotions, then maybe... They shook their head before continuing the report. Well, he seemed okay, just a bit put out, like Mr. Darcy was when Elizabeth rejected him. Very out of sorts. He didn't have his usual confidence. Thank goodness Muriel wasn't the cleverest in heaven. They were very good at noticing things, but never put two and two together. This certainly hurt his heart. Oh, Crowley, why can't you just move on? It was hurting them both so much now. Aziraphale couldn't just go back to Earth. He couldn't. He couldn't risk their safety. Thank you for the report. I do appreciate it. Muriel nodded before miracling some object. He told me to give you this as well. I'm not quite sure why, but he seemed quite grumpy. Grumpy. That was one way to put it. Aziraphale took the object and his heart instantly warmed. It was his handwritten copy of Pride and Prejudice. She had given it to him in private after he and Crowley spent time with her, giving her encouragement for more women writing in the world. It worked for both sides, really. For heaven, it meant more love in the world. For hell, it meant a lot of angry, misogynistic men to cause chaos. Jane really had been a lovely woman. The memories warmed his heart as he nodded to Muriel. A loving smile beamed from Aziraphale's lips. Muriel was entranced. Thank you for this. Thank you greatly. I'm very sorry to usher you out, but I must get on with work. Muriel nodded. Oh, yes, sir. I'll go back to the bookshop. They left for the door before Aziraphale called them back. Muriel? Yes, sir. Aziraphale smiled softly. You really are a truly wonderful angel. Quite frankly, one of the best. Muriel beamed and nodded. Yes, sir. Thanks to you. I think I'm starting to believe it. Muriel giggled a little before shutting the door. Aziraphale waited until they were gone and opened the book. There, inside, were the photos from when they were being investigated just before Armageddon. He smiled warmly, placing them together, miracling little frames for them. Little did he know, his miracle was a lot more powerful than he knew before. The frames were gorgeous, incredibly ornate, just like Crowley, he noted. He hugged the book close to his chest. Chapter 4. Hot Chocolate. Aziraphale smiled happily as he poured hot milk into the mug. Since Metatron hadn't noticed the book or the photos, he realized he was able to take some liberties. Yes, he couldn't exactly start a revolution, But that didn't mean he couldn't start sowing the seeds. Muriel watched him curiously. I still don't get it. What's so special about hot milk? Aziraphale put his finger up, talking excitedly. My dear Muriel, the magic is still yet to happen. Muriel suddenly looked very excited. Oh, you're performing a miracle? I love watching them. Aziraphale chuckled, gently putting a few spoonfuls of hot chocolate into each cup and stirring them. A sweet aroma began to fill the room, and for a moment it really felt as if he were in the bookshop. His special snake companion was no longer here, and the hot chocolate could only simulate the warmth. But still, it was comforting. He picked up the mug, passing it to Muriel. Now, be careful, it's very hot. Muriel then looked a bit anxious, staring at the cup, as if it were about to attack them. Clearly, they'd never drunk anything before. Okay, I'm not tricking you. Just sip it if you're not sure. Are you trying to test me? Isn't this temptation? Aziraphale chuckled again, placing his hands around Muriel's holding the cup. Muriel again looked anxious, looking up, only to find warmth in Aziraphale's eyes. Don't you worry. I'm Head Archangel. I'm too holy to tempt you. Muriel looked hesitant for a moment, before Aziraphale released their hands, and they took a quick sip, eyes squinted and anxious. But then their eyes widened in surprise. It was delicious. Quickly, they began to gulp more. Aziraphale looked at them in surprise. Be careful. Remember, it's very hot. Muriel paused for a moment before nodding and proceeding to finish their whole cup. They had hot chocolate around their lips, which they quickly wiped, before realizing they'd left a brown mark on their sleeve. Oh no! I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to soil my heavenly uniform. Oh, I'm so sorry. Aziraphale smiled once more, and with one swipe of his hand, the stain was gone. Muriel looked at the sleeve in surprise and turned to Aziraphale, a little shy. Could I maybe have another one, if that's okay? Aziraphale was convinced Muriel really was the purest in heaven. He was so kind and had such a gentle temperament. He picked up the tray of hot chocolate, gesturing to Muriel. Help me carry these trays into the meeting, and you're welcome to another one. Just make sure to use a serviette next time instead of your sleeve. Muriel nodded excitedly, taking the tray a little too enthusiastically, and nearly knocking some of the cups over. Aziraphale chuckled once more and led the way into the meeting. The archangels were already sat there, looking displeased. This was one of the meetings Metatron would be attending, he realized. He was standing, asserting his authority over the other archangels. Aziraphale turned to see that Muriel was a little on edge. He flashed a smile, tilting his head to indicate Muriel to follow before entering the room. He placed the tray on the table, and Muriel followed suit. He passed a biscuit and mug to them, which they gratefully accepted, and hurried out of the room after their momentary confusion at the biscuit. He didn't blame them. It was a thoroughly unpleasant atmosphere in here. Still, he began to hand out the mugs to each of them, each on a netted coaster. He then placed the biscuits in the center. He moved to Metatron, offering a mug. Here you go. Trust me, you'll enjoy it. Metatron narrowed his eyebrows. You offered me a copy once, remember? I'm simply returning the favor. Hot chocolate really is scrumptious. He smiled, but it was clearly fake. He took the mug, but as soon as Aziraphale's back was turned, he placed it onto the table. Aziraphale heard the clink of the mug hitting the table, but chose to ignore it. He knew it was likely to turn out this way. It didn't faze him. He finally sat at the table himself, taking his hot chocolate and gleefully taking a sip. Delicious. The other archangels seemed to visibly recoil. Aziraphale found it ridiculous. Metatron's eyes narrowed once more. Aziraphale, is this not temptation? I'd expect better from an archangel. Aziraphale simply smiled. Oh, of course not. You slander me, Metatron. I'm simply spreading more love throughout heaven. Besides, I'd have fallen by now if it really was temptation, correct? The other archangels once more recoiled. The idea of falling was terrifying to all of them. But then, they couldn't help but get it. Then heaven would get back on track. Cheers, he smiled, gesturing the mug around the room. Come on, let's just get on with it, Raphael declared, before bringing her shaking hand to her face as she began to try it. She took a sip, and shockingly, it wasn't bad. She proceeded to take another sip. It's actually quite good. Aziraphale clapped his hands excitedly before gesturing to the plate of biscuit. Try one of these too. I promise it's not a sin. I'm head archangel after all. I can allow this. Don't mind if I do. Sir then reached for a yellow-looking biscuit, clearly the most heavenly looking. They hesitantly took a bite, and again, it was good. That's a custard cream, Aziraphale pointed out cheerily. Finally, the other archangels began to hesitantly try the hot chocolate. Funnily enough, most of them liked it. Michael was the only one that showed instant distaste. I'm not a fan, she spoke sultily. I always did expect you of being a coffee fan. Well, try ginger snap instead. They seem more your taste. Michael was hesitant once more, but now the other archangels were watching her. Her hand trembled as she reached for the biscuit, as Aziraphale had indicated. She could do it. She was a strong archangel. This wouldn't kill her. She took a small bite, then another. The biscuit didn't last long. Did you like it? Asked Aziraphale, bemused. Not too bad, replied Michael, nonchalant. Right, now the festivities are over. Can we please get on with the meeting? Metatron huffed. It wasn't often Metatron lost his temper. The other archangels suddenly lost interest in their drinks, yet they couldn't help their eyes wandering over every now and then. The meeting passed a little easier this time. Finally, the meeting concluded. Aziraphale began to tidy up the mugs once more, humming to himself. Oh, if he could show Crowley he really had made a difference. Heaven just needed guidance. Suddenly, he was aware of a presence behind him. His nerves were suddenly on edge. Was he to be punished for this? Oh, goodness, no, he'd just risked Crowley's life once more. Why couldn't he just... It was simply Michael. He turned, smiling. How may I help you? I do apologize for the lack of coffee. I'll ensure we have that next meeting. Michael nodded. Great. I have to say, well, as much as I hate to admit it, I think you did well, Aziraphale. I'm a proud angel, but that doesn't mean I can't admit when another angel has done well. Aziraphale put his hands together as he beamed happily. Oh, I'm so glad you think so. I was thinking, maybe we can get some up throughout heaven. Michael looked surprised. I'm afraid we can't do that. The lower-ranking angels would stop working for far too long. No, this is clearly something for the higher ranks. Aziraphale was stunned for a moment. They'd just discovered something so wonderful, and yet they wanted it for themselves only. Surely that wasn't fair. Michael, surely you must understand how cruel that is. Heaven is built on love, not a hierarchy. Since when did heaven become so selfish? Michael simply shook her head. Aziraphale, you have much to learn still. Heaven won't magically fix itself like that. These days, the only way to function is a hierarchy. Aziraphale had a sad expression in his eyes for a moment, before he changed his expression to look more determined, even if the fire blazing in his heart was beginning to dim. Well, I'd still like to try, he huffed, beginning to storm out of the room. Suddenly, Michael called out his name. He turned, looking unimpressed. Can I have some more of those ginger snaps, please? No, he replied back angrily. The audacity of these angels. After speaking like that to him, abusing the lower ranks, well, he never. She later found several packs on her desk. He returned to his desk, slamming the trays down angrily. He sat on his desk, placing his head in one of his hands. Why was everything so difficult, he sighed. This was never going to be easy, he knew it, but still. Yet horror filled his veins as he looked to see a note with impeccable handwriting on his desk. It could only be from Metatron. Tread carefully, Aziraphale. Why'd he done that? Why'd he shown he still cared? He just wanted to move on and get it over with. Aziraphale clearly didn't see him in the same way. It was obvious. So why couldn't he move on? He reached into his jacket, clumsily and angrily opening his flask of whiskey before chugging a few good mouthfuls. It burned. He didn't care. He just needed to drown out his feelings for Aziraphale. Stop his stupid heart from being all touchy and loving. He was a demon for somebody's sake. He wasn't all about this stupid stuff. But every time he thought of Aziraphale at his desk, alone and crying, he couldn't bear it. Like someone had gotten a spray bottle of holy water and sprinkled it all over his heart, slowly burning and melting. agonizing. He took a few more big gulps of whiskey. Why wasn't this working? It had stopped he and Aziraphale from worrying about the apocalypse so much, even for just a few hours. Why wouldn't it offer some relief now? Another gulp. He and Aziraphale drinking in Rome. One more swig. Drinking in the Ritz. One big chug. They were meant to have an extremely alcoholic breakfast at the Ritz. Bastard! Finally, he took the metal flask and launched it at the floor. Tears began to slip down from under his sunglasses. This was so stupid! He placed his head on the steering wheel, gritting his teeth. God, you better be listening to me. If you harm a single hair on his head, I'll come up there and destroy you myself. He gripped the steering wheel intensely, filled with rage, before his fingers relaxed and he slumped over further. Please protect him. God did not reply. Chapter 5. Brewing Storm. Another month had passed. Well, what Aziraphale assumed to be a month. There wasn't a daylight cycle in heaven. No, only pure, blinding light. He still harbored his adamant dislike of them. However, he had grown a little more accustomed. He really did miss his quiet evenings in the bookstore. And oh goodness, did he crave a nice evening nap under his favourite slightly rough blanket on his favourite chair, the heater on for a warm winter's evening, Crowley near him on his armchair. Yes, Crowley's armchair. Though Aziraphale wouldn't admit it, he found the best use of said armchair was being Crowley's throne. Still, he had some amenities in heaven now. First off, the higher ranks of angels were now privy to a hot chocolate, tea, or coffee whenever they felt like it. Surprisingly, there had been no protest from God about this, and henceforth nothing from Metatron. On top of this, he found comfort in the photos Crowley had gifted to him, Muriel. Oh, Crowley. He hoped Crowley was doing well, despite everything. But he was sure now he was beginning to build a heaven Crowley would at least be able to tolerate, even if Crowley hated him forever. He refused to contact Crowley, even risked finding out how Crowley was. Not that he'd technically be allowed to. It was driving him insane, but Crowley would be okay. He had to. Or else Aziraphale was doing all this for nothing. Crowley would be okay. He had also encouraged lots of other small things to heaven that technically weren't sin. For example, Aziraphale had found a way to show individuality, whilst not removing his angel status. He had become quite privy to a tartan silk scarf casually wrapped around his neck. It reminded him of when he and Crowley had gotten to perform on Broadway. It made his heart a little warmer. Apparently, it made others more cheery as well, as soon angels began to take this as a sign to show a little bit of individuality. Surprisingly, Muriel had been the first to do it, putting 2 hair clips in their hair. They brushed it off as it made it easier to see their work, but once, when Aziraphale walked past their desk, he noticed them checking their appearance and smiling giddily over the hair clips. Interestingly enough, however, he noticed he wasn't technically the first archangel to show interest in their appearance. Michael, for example, was apparently a fan of small earrings, subtle but not too much so that it would be unnoticeable. This interested Aziraphale. He was terrified at first, and so devastated. And he still really missed Crowley. But maybe, just maybe, heaven was returning to the way it was supposed to be. He was doing a rough sketch of his new design for a suggestion box when a sharp knock resounded from his office door. He pulled the front of his blazer a little bit, smoothing it, before opening the door to what he expected to be Muriel. He was wrong. There stood the Metatron, smiling away. This was thoroughly unnerving. As of late, he hadn't seen Metatron in a good mood for a while. Metatron wasn't a fan of how heaven was slowly shifting. And of course, there wasn't much he could do, since Aziraphale kept coming up with technically valid reasons why new concepts in heaven weren't against the rules. Aziraphale, come with me. It is time for our meeting regarding the second coming. Aziraphale felt a chill run down his spine. Oh no. He had been so distracted with little pleasantries that he had completely forgotten one of the major things he must do here. Stop the second coming in order to protect Earth and the stars, where Crowley resided. The only places Crowley could reside. Metatron gestured his arm forward, encouraging Aziraphale to walk forward. Aziraphale looked a little unnerved, but followed suit, keeping a relatively calm posture. Metatron turned, adding in a cool but condescending tone, "Oh, and no hot chocolates or coffee or whatever this time. This is a serious meeting, not playing house." Aziraphale smiled. He hoped not too falsely. "Oh, and this as well." Metatron grabbed a hold of Aziraphale's scarf, ripping it rather unpleasantly off of Aziraphale's neck. He suspected there would likely be a mark left behind. This really was getting ridiculous. Then he couldn't exactly complain. He was reminded quite painfully who was really in control here. He could wear a pretty scarf and warm hearts with a warm drink, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter. This left a sour taste in his mouth. Finally, they reached the meeting room. The archangels were there, perfectly pristine and seemingly a little on edge. Well, this was what they had been building towards for a while. Still, it did disappoint Aziraphale that Michael's favourite earrings were nowhere to be seen, with even the hole they would normally be placed miracled away. Aziraphale took his seat near the head of the table, and Metatron stood next to him, beaming away. He clapped his hands together cheerily. "Well now, I'm sure you're all riveting to hear about God's latest plan." The Archangel smiled all too falsely. Aziraphale could only muster a small upward turn to the end of his lips. "So, as you all know, God had this plan for a very long time. The Second Coming." Michael's eyes fluttered upward in intrigue. Sir Raphael didn't seem to particularly care, only fixing a solid gaze upon Metatron. Uriel was the only one who seemed to still remain in a rigid position, alert and formal. Metatron passed out some flyers to the archangels, looking somehow even cheerier. "Now, these flyers will be passed throughout heaven. But remember, they are strictly to stay in heaven. We don't want hell getting word of this. After all, this is also our judgment day. Hell will be thoroughly unimpressed when we send them a whole new wave of sinners with the paperwork and all that." Aziraphale looked down at the flyer and honestly felt rather sick. It seemed so industrial and yet somehow rather cheery, much too cheery for what it was. He opened it. It looked even worse. He couldn't even process the Metatron's words as he briefly looked through the flyer. It wouldn't just be the apocalypse, it would be a total war ground. Well, if there was any ground left, Earth and the stars would cease to exist. Just gone. Only heaven and hell would be there by the end, their battlegrounds the vast expanse of empty space, until only heaven reminded him to create a superior, untainted Earth. It was horrible. Now, Aziraphale, I'm sure you must be simply over the moon, but now please listen. It's crucial information. Aziraphale looked back up again, praying he did not look as faint as he felt. By the Metatron's half-pleased look, he knew that his prayers were left unanswered. Closer to the time, you will be distributed your position. As archangels, you will be expected to lead the war against the demons. Uriel looked a bit unnerved, but his eyes were hard and questioning. Is this part of the Ineffable plan, since the apocalypse didn't happen and all? God really wants to get rid of all her believers? Metatron patted them on the shoulder. They didn't seem pleased. Of course it's part of the plan. She can create even greater, more beautiful believers. Surely that's superior. Besides, I'm God's spokesperson. Her word is mine. I suppose so. Uriel's tone was smooth and cool, yet his gaze did not seem to relax. Metatron chose to simply ignore them. He clapped his hands together once more. Uriel's tone was smooth and cool, yet his gaze did not seem to relax. Metatron chose to simply ignore them. He clapped his hands together once more. Right, if we have no more questions, the meeting is over. You will receive more information as and when. Aziraphale was shocked, as were the other archangels apparently. It was a painfully short meeting, not even 5 minutes, and all they got were some silly little leaflets. Michael looked up, pleased. Metatron, forgive me, we've waited a very long time for this. Surely we get more information, more than what all the other lower-ranking angels get. You are forgiven. The atmosphere in the room was suddenly very tense. Michael looked over to Aziraphale. You're head archangel. Surely you can do something about this. Aziraphale began to speak, raising his hand. Then he noticed a cruel, hard look from Metatron from his side. No, he couldn't risk Crowley's life once more. He'd done enough of that already. His own life was one thing, but Crowley's... Apologies, but Metatron is correct. More information will come in due time. Michael seemed indignated, but Oriel seemed to be disappointed, angry almost. Aziraphale brushed down his coat, standing up quickly. Well, off we go then. Aziraphale smiled unnaturally, masking the inner chaos inside. He walked very quickly through the door, into his office, and slammed the door. He paced back and forth, his face pale. This was wrong. This was so wrong, so awful, so terrible. Sure, he was skeptical of some parts of heaven, but this... Well, it had no justification. This was ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. How on earth... Suddenly, the floor trembled a little. Trembled. Heaven was meant to be perfectly still. Just what was... Knock, knock, knock. He huffed, stepping towards the door, swinging it open, ready to give Metatron a piece of his mind in private. There stood Muriel, looking anxious and scared in their little tartan scarf. He let them in, quickly moving to prepare a hot chocolate, even placing the marshmallows they loved so much into it. He picked it up, handing it to them. They chugged it in one go. All right, now, tell me what's wrong. Muriel had tears in their eyes as they looked up to Aziraphale. Metatron is making me stay on Earth during the Second Coming. Chapter 6. The Lightning Strikes. Aziraphale was actually stunned for a moment, speechless. No, surely he had misheard. Heaven wasn't cruel enough to be rid of its own kin, surely. Muriel, I'm sure you've misheard. Could you explain to me exactly what has happened? Muriel shifted a little on their seat, and Aziraphale miracled another round of hot chocolate. They sipped it more tentatively this time, letting the hot chocolate soothe their nerves a little. Well, you see, when Metatron told me I could look after the bookshop, he told me it was until and including the Second Coming. Aziraphale felt a chill run down their spine. That is unfortunate, but I'm sure you'll be able to leave Earth before it happens. There's no need for you to stay there. Didn't you read the fine print? Muriel suddenly stood up, unfolding the leaflet rather unceremoniously and shoving it towards Aziraphale, pointing towards a certain section. This was the boldest Muriel had ever been around him. He knew it was serious. He took his glasses from his lapel, attempting to read the text. It was still too small. In your desk, take out the magnifying glass. Aziraphale was surprised and pulled out his drawers. There it was. He quickly took it and began to read the fine print. All angels below the rank of 15 will stay on Earth during the Second Coming. God will create new angels. What? He stood up, slapping his glasses closed. Heaven couldn't do this. It was wrong. God, Crowley was right, completely right. How could the loss of angels be justified? The loss of purity itself. The floor began to shake again, this time a little more violently. For the first time in his life, Aziraphale felt true disgust. Aziraphale? Aziraphale quickly turned to Muriel, a soft smile on his face as the tremoring began to slow to a stop once more. Don't worry. No angel will be disappeared on my watch. Muriel's eyes lit up, bouncing a little before suddenly bringing Aziraphale into an embrace. Thank you. Aziraphale was a little tentative to hug back at first. Angels didn't really have much physical contact with one another. But then he returned the embrace. They suddenly let go, not realizing what they had done. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize what I was doing. I was just very scared. That last part was very quiet, and his heart broke a little at those quiet words. It's okay, don't worry. I may be head archangel, but at my core, I am Aziraphale. Now, if you do me a favor, could you please use your fast reading skills to make sure there's no more unpleasant surprises? Muriel saluted, nodding. Yes, sir. They went to leave before Aziraphale called out to them. Muriel, you may use my office. It'll make it easier, right? Muriel seemed apprehensive. Oh, well, this is your office. I don't think I'm allowed. Aziraphale chuckled, shaking his head as he patted them on the shoulder. Only more angels were like you. It's my office. You're more than welcome to use it. And you may have all the hot chocolate you wish for. Muriel still looked nervous. My rank is so low. I shouldn't even be here in the first place. Aziraphale looked at them with one last gentle smile. I can't do much about the rest of heaven, but in here there are no ranks. With that, he left, his smile turning into an expression of determination and outrage. This would not be allowed to pass. He walked past Uriel, who he glanced over to. Uriel nodded, a rare smile on the lips. He smiled and nodded back. He could do this. Ah, Aziraphale, I was looking for you. The exact person Aziraphale was looking for appeared next to him. He stilled his nerves. And I was looking for you, Metatron. I urgently need to speak with you. Metatron patted Aziraphale's shoulder, his grip strong as he encouraged Aziraphale to walk forward. Aziraphale stepped back, standing solidly. He would not be guided. No, this needs to be stated now. Your terms for the second coming are ridiculous. The sacrifice of innocent angels, it's... Metatron gripped Aziraphale's shoulder once more, much more painfully. Aziraphale ought not to react, but now he couldn't help but be dragged along. He was reminded of Metatron's power. Still, he refused to give up. Refused to let the other angels foot the bill of war. Metatron's voice was smooth, but menacing. Now you listen to me, Aziraphale. You may be head archangel, but I am the word of God. I still have authority over you. His grip tightened even further. And you would do well to remember that. Aziraphale was silent now. He was stupid to think this was so easily solvable. Metatron was a force to be reckoned with, but he wouldn't back down. He'd come back to this. He had time. He sighed in false compliance. All right. But what do you need my assistance for? Metatron brought them towards a globe similar looking to the one he had used to return to Earth during the apocalypse. Metatron snapped his fingers, and suddenly the globe lit up with red dots scattered across it. It was hard to see them, however, as they were quite small and very much in clusters. These, began Metatron, are all the prayers of humanity around the world. It helps us keep tabs of where help is needed. We can't answer each individual one, of course, but we can keep tabs on things at least. Aziraphale was taken aback for a moment. Each dot, each tiny little dot, was someone's thoughts, wills, wants. Each grand dream was simply a mark on the map. Quite frankly, it was one of the most beautiful things he had ever seen. A collection of love and care, and perhaps a little mischief. Love. He felt rather touched. Suddenly, however, Metatron raised his hand over the globe, and it began to zoom in on a specific area. Within seconds, it seemed to be focused on a small village. He recognized it from his journey to Edinburgh. They were quite pleasant there when he stopped to stretch his legs, kind and caring. A little girl had even brought him a freshly baked bun, a gift from her mother. So why was there suddenly so many prayers here? Metatron glanced over, watching Aziraphale's reaction closely. His finger then tapped one of the dots, and Aziraphale almost jumped as a voice resonated from the globe. Dear God, I haven't prayed before, but I'm desperate. My farm, this storm has been drowning all the plants. I'm running low on money. I truly am worried now. Please, I beg of you. Aziraphale turned to Metatron. Oh no, is God angry at them or something? They were very pleasant from what I knew. Metatron nodded. Well, they seem to have lost their faith for a while, so God would be within their right to forsake them. Metatron had a tone of disdain, but then it changed to a more pleasant one. However, that is not the case here. He tapped another red dot. A younger voice spoke up this time. Please, can you stop the storm? Mummy's cows are all out there and they don't like rain very much. They sound very sad. Aziraphale felt his heart melt a little at her sad tone, and even more so at the poor cows stuck outside in the awful weather. Animals were innocent and blameless. They didn't deserve this. Although neither did the humans, he suspected. Just what on earth was going on? Metatron pressed another prayer. God, I haven't been religious since I was young, and if this is my fault, then punish me, but the house, there is rain starting to come in, and it can't handle any more damage. Oh, please, my daughter has become ill, and oh God, please do not forsake us. Before, Aziraphale had felt pity, but now he felt intensely worried. Hardship's one thing, but risking the lives of children? No, this was too far. So why on earth was this happening? All right, you've proved your point. I agree, this is a matter of urgency. But what is causing it? Metatron had a sickening smirk on his lips. His hand moved forward once more. Aziraphale watched with bated breath. God, you better be listening to me. Crowley. Not Crowley. Why'd it have to be Crowley? If you harm a single hair on his head, I'll come up there and destroy you myself. Why was Crowley still trying to protect him? He had abandoned Crowley, refused to visit him, even watch him. So why on earth was Crowley trying to protect him? Please, please protect him. Crowley's voice was broken and sad and oh so painful to hear. He couldn't bear it. It was too much. His breathing became more rapid. He had to control it. He had to, else Metatron would see The ground of heaven began to shake again. As you can see, it's starting to affect heaven too. This has to be stopped immediately. You know what has to be done. Aziraphale stood very still as Metatron's footsteps echoed, slowly becoming quieter as he left the chamber. He waited till he was sure the door was shut, and quickly clasped a hand over his mouth. Tears began to leak out of his eyes once more. Why did Crowley still care? Why couldn't Crowley have just given up, moved on, made everything easier for the both of them? How was he meant to be a puppet here when so much love resided on Earth? With Crowley? Because as much as his heart was hurting, it was also trying to flourish. Because Crowley still cared, hadn't given up, was still waiting for him to return. His hand shook as he raised it near the globe, as if he could reach out to find Crowley, tell him everything that happened, tell him he regretted it, they didn't want any of this, they didn't... Stop it. He couldn't go back. Even if he and Crowley could deal with the Book of Life, even if they could simply go off to the stars, he couldn't leave heaven. Not now. Not now that he'd seen change. Not now they knew just how cruel heaven could be. He stilled himself and looked at the globe. He knew what had to be done. Yes, he would make Crowley hate him, once and for all. I'm so sorry, dear, he thought, as he pressed his finger to the globe, and he began to teleport. Chapter 7. The Lightning Strikes, Part 2. Aziraphale never liked the feeling of teleporting. It was thoroughly unpleasant. He felt his stomach drop, and he felt truly unnerved, although that also could be due to what he was about to do. His body began to appear in the village, and as his senses slowly came to him, he was immediately struck by the intensity of the storm. Rain began to lash down onto him, and he felt freezing. The wind ripped at his clothes, and he almost lost his balance. This was Crowley's doing? He knew Crowley could create lightning, but an entire storm? Surely he hadn't been the cause of this. He placed his arm near his eyes to shield away the rain as he stepped forward. He'd find Crowley. Put an end to this. Love of my life, you've hurt me. You've broken my heart, and now you leave me. Crowley hardly paid attention to the music as he took another swig from his metal flask. The alcohol burnt his throat, but he didn't particularly care anymore. He didn't want to care about anything anymore. He still cared about Aziraphale. That was the stupidest thing. Aziraphale had ditched him, not even tried to contact him, although he wasn't sure he wanted to talk to Aziraphale either. He refused to talk to Muriel, too. He wouldn't step foot in that bookshop again. No, never. He'd never spare a single effort for Aziraphale anymore. He was done. Not dealing with it anymore. Nuh-uh. No way. He took another deep swig. Love of my life, don't leave me. You've taken my love, you now desert me. Oh, quit it, will you? Either play something cheery or shut up, he huffed, leaning his head back as the Bentley momentarily paused. It began to play a different tune. Can anybody find me somebody to love? Crowley sneered at the car. Right, you better quit it or else. The car beeped back. Crowley was astounded. Don't you sass me. Just what has gotten into you? However, the Bentley beeped again. The Bentley had never acted like this before. Finally, Crowley began to focus and realized that the car was being hit by heavy rain. Blasted weather, he murmured. Go find somewhere better. However, the Bentley beeped again. We are not going to some fancy garage. You are a damn car. You don't get cold. The Bentley beeped several more times in frustration, as if someone was smashing their head on the steering wheel, and sped forward quickly. Crowley gripped the door tightly, his eyes widening. I'm the drunk one, not you. This is ridiculous. Oh, for... The doors locked. Crowley huffed, quickly sobering up. He'd deal with whatever the Bentley was up to. He gripped the wheel tightly, trying to turn it. It still wasn't listening. And, shockingly, Crowley realized he couldn't see through the rain either to steer. Just why was the Bentley so desperate to go? Maybe she had rusted a little too much? He had neglected her a little lately. He'd usually kept her pristine, but maybe... And then he felt it. A familiar feeling. A comfortable feeling. A calming feeling. Aziraphale was here. He tightly gripped the wheel. No, you're not going to him. You are getting out of here. He just needed to leave. He didn't want to see Aziraphale again. Not after what Aziraphale had done. No, he didn't miss Aziraphale at all. At all. Not Aziraphale's kind smile, or his incredibly soft hair, or his favourite tartan bow tie. Nor the way he'd look at Crowley like he was the most precious thing in the world. Not the way he made Crowley feel wanted, made him feel special as if he wasn't fallen, wasn't ruined, wasn't... There he was. It was hard to see through the rain, but he'd never mistake Aziraphale for anyone else. Aziraphale looked as if he were only a shell of his past self. He looked paler, more tired. His usual cheery suit was replaced by a plain white archangel suit. There was no personality left in it. It reminded him of the past, of those who hurt him, of those who betrayed him. How was this Aziraphale? The Bentley stopped. He turned into a snake and slithered down, hiding behind the wheel. He couldn't face Aziraphale. He refused to. Bentley's lights lit up, and Aziraphale suddenly turned to look at the car. Crowley couldn't see Aziraphale from his position anymore, but he heard the hurried footsteps and the way the rain splashed upon him, and the splashes of the sound of footsteps in the rain. Funny. Aziraphale used to hate getting his freshly pressed trousers wet. One night, when they left the Ritz, there was a particularly large puddle near the exit. Aziraphale had stepped into it, and though he said it was fine, he looked extremely upset. To most, you wouldn't be able to tell, but Crowley knew every micro-expression. Crowley had miracled away the stain on Aziraphale's trousers, and completely miracled away the puddle. Aziraphale had thanked Crowley so much, and given the softest smile, that Crowley was surprised he hadn't become a puddle too. Maybe that was all a lie, too. Ah, hello there. I can see Crowley isn't with you. Crowley didn't speak up. Aziraphale had really not seen him. He listened closely and realized he couldn't hear raindrops hitting an umbrella or wings. Aziraphale was really standing completely in the rain, getting soaked. Well, he didn't care. He just hoped the angel would hurry up and leave. Well, at least I got to see you too. I really do hope you've been looking after him. Although, guessing by the storm, I doubt he's in the best mood. Well, I suppose that's my fault, isn't it? There was a sad note to that last part. Well, Aziraphale was right. It was all the angel's fault. He didn't feel bad at all. Nope, never. Well, for what it's worth, I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused the both of you, and that I will cause. Bentley suddenly popped out a small tray. Travel sweets. The Bentley was better than this, surely. Oh, when this stupid angel left. Oh, no, I couldn't. I've taken enough from you. I do appreciate that I still have a friend here, though. Although it's honestly better if you forget about me now. He gently stroked the front of the Bentley. Please look after him for me, okay? I have one last conversation to have with him. He turned, leaving. Well, he wasn't talking to Aziraphale. He didn't feel bad at all. Nope, not one bit. Who cares if Aziraphale had no friends on Earth? He had them in heaven. No, he didn't feel bad. He wouldn't. Nah. Get back here, you idiot angel. Aziraphale. He huffed, returning to a humanoid form, leaning against the window, making sure his glasses were covering his eyes still. He wouldn't look. Aziraphale seemed not to move for a moment. What, Aziraphale had changed his mind? So what, he didn't care? He did. Just get in the damn car already. Aziraphale didn't speak again for a moment, and when he did speak, Crowley had to strain to hear it. Don't want car wet. Crowley rolled his eyes. You what? Aziraphale's tone suddenly changed, much firmer, but it didn't really sound like Aziraphale. Like someone had taken his place. Like he was lying. I will not consort with the demon. I am the head archangel. I refuse to. Oh, quit it, he complained. Stop with the dramatics. I'm not in the mood. Dramatics? I'll have you know, I really don't like you. So, there. Crowley huffed again, this time much louder and with much more frustration. This was ridiculous. Had heaven really indoctrinated him so quickly? No, he refused to believe it. All right, state what you want and we'll get this over with. I won't taint your holiness. Aziraphale was quiet for a while again, and Crowley almost thought Aziraphale felt regret. But no, Aziraphale didn't even explain himself. There was no regret. I need you to stop this storm. What? He replied, dumbfounded. Stop the storm. Please, Aziraphale repeated. I'm not making the storm. Yes, you are. You just don't realize it, Aziraphale half pleaded. I said I'm not. The storm suddenly increased in intensity. He quickly turned to Aziraphale, an angry look on his face. Aziraphale just came here to protect heaven, do his job, as usual. Why do you care anyway? You only care about heaven, that's all. You don't give a damn about Earth or the Bentley or me, so you might as well just go. The storm suddenly picked up even more intensely. Suddenly, the Bentley began to spin out of control. The door opened, knocking Aziraphale into the car. Crowley, however, was so full of rage he almost didn't notice. He kept his arms folded, facing forward. The Bentley shut the door, and Aziraphale clung tightly to the door and the middle of the car. Aziraphale seemed to hesitate for a moment, seemingly choosing the right word. Yes, I don't give a damn, so you can stop all this now. Forget about me, forget about everything, just move on. I can't move on. His voice was full of rage, but then it became a lot more sadder than he wanted it to be. I can't. Aziraphale watched Crowley intensely, and Crowley realized he was expressing too many emotions. He took a few deep breaths before looking forward again, not facing Aziraphale. You can stop caring, but I can't. His voice was quiet. A few moments passed, and though the storm didn't completely calm, it seemed to reduce in its intensity, though the rain got heavier. The Bentley was still suspended in the air. How do you know I don't care? Aziraphale sounded like he was about to cry. Crowley tried his best to ignore it. It didn't matter. It didn't change anything. It was probably just his own emotions making him hear what he wanted to hear. You haven't visited, haven't sent a message, haven't done anything. You've moved on, it's obvious. Heaven doesn't let me. Crowley paused for a moment. He remembered how strict heaven was, but Aziraphale wouldn't be stopped from visiting Earth. He was head archangel for pity's sake. Oh, don't lie to me. Come on now, surely I'm worth more than that. Aziraphale looked almost scared for a second. Oh, you're right, yes. It was a lie. I was just making them easier. That was all. You've always been a bad liar, Angel. All of a sudden, the storm seemed to calm significantly, and the Bentley slowly hit the ground. The rain seemed calm. Aziraphale, however, looked more frustrated. No, the first one was a lie, not the second one. Don't put words in my mouth. Heaven is very, very free, very chill. Crowley rolled his eyes. Oh, well, at least make it less obvious. I was in heaven too, and I know it's not all sunshine and daisies. The storm finally calmed. Clouds still covered the sky, but the rain had stopped, and the wind was now a gentler breeze. No, it's changed a lot since you were there. Not that you'd be interested. Crowley tilted his head. So you know I'm not really interested in heaven. Why did you invite me then? Aziraphale seemed a lot more flustered now. Was there really something else at play here? I was a fool. I was living in a fantasy. I've learned now, and oh look, the storm is over. Time for me to go. Aziraphale quickly stood, getting out of the car. Crowley grabbed Aziraphale's wrist as he tried to leave. Don't go. Let's talk. Please. Aziraphale shook his head. No, you don't understand. I have to leave, Crowley. You don't get it. The Metatron. Metatron? Crowley inquired. No, he's lovely, very kind. He was clearly very flustered now. So let me go now. Crowley then noticed the bruises on Aziraphale's neck. So kind he did that, eh? What he said was light-hearted, but Crowley was filled with rage. They had hurt his angel, one of the purest angels up there, and they damaged him. Angel, listen. No, I'm going. Goodbye, don't follow. I don't like you. I really don't. Suddenly, Aziraphale began to fade into gold dust and ascended towards heaven. Crowley leapt out of the car to Aziraphale's side. Aziraphale, get back here, you idiot! Aziraphale was gone. Crowley took off his glasses for just a moment as a ray of sunshine broke through the clouds. He put them back on again. Chapter 8. Return to Heaven. Aziraphale returned to the globe. Quickly, he stormed through heaven. Many angels looked at him, but he didn't return the look, instead racing to his office. He couldn't think, he could only walk to contain his emotions. He reached his office and slammed the door. He began to pace back and forth. Control it, keep cool, don't think about it, don't. As he paced, he didn't notice the slight tremor of his desk, the shake of the mugs, the clinking as they wobbled. This was ridiculous, so ridiculous. Why couldn't he just get it right? All he had to do was convince Crowley they didn't care anymore, hide everything, get Crowley to give up. So why couldn't he even do that? He was head archangel. Why did he keep making mistakes? Why? His mug exploded. A shard flew to his hand, slicing through it. He quickly opened his desk, take out a cloth napkin, and pressed it on his hand. Blood. Human blood. It was a reminder that Crowley was no longer around to protect him all the time. But it was also a reminder that he could still bleed. He still had a connection with Earth. He could still feel, and that was better than nothing. He tied the napkin clumsily around his hand. He could miracle it away, but for now, it was the only thing grounding him. He quickly miracled the mug all clean and fixed back on its spot on the cabinet. He sat down on his chair and sighed deeply. How had this all gone so wrong? He wanted to be back in the bookshop with Crowley, his biggest worry being that his tea wasn't warm enough. He wanted to have a soft armchair and be all cozy and happy and warm. Oh well, there wasn't much he could do. He placed his hands on the desk and then his forehead on top of them. He'd have to sort this, wouldn't he? He'd somehow managed to give Crowley hope again. He'd have to practice his lies. It hurt to see Crowley so devastated. It hurt so intensely. He wanted to tell Crowley it was okay, that he was forced to. He had no choice in the matter at all. That he didn't need Crowley to be an angel, knew that Crowley wouldn't come with him, God, why is everything so complicated? Something was very clearly wrong. Aziraphale had clearly gotten himself into something, again, and he was finding it very difficult not to care. He didn't even have the full picture. Aziraphale had always been an awful liar. Really obvious. Well, it was Aziraphale's decision anyway. It's not like they didn't have any secrets between them. No matter what, Aziraphale still chose to go to heaven instead of staying on Earth with him. Aziraphale is smart. He wouldn't have been persuaded in foul ways. Even if there was a few extra deciding factors, Aziraphale still made that decision. He's smart. Oh, right, the bookshop. He let out a loud groan as the Bentley kicked into gear, going along at maximum speed. Sometimes he felt like she favoured Aziraphale over himself. Rather rude, he thought. Suddenly, a small container popped out of the dashboard. Crowley rolled his eyes. No. It moved in a little before pushing out again. I'm not having it. It shook a little again, the sweets rattling in the tray. Oh, fine, else you're going to spill sweets all over the floor. He took the sweet very hesitantly and shoved it at his mouth. He pretended not to like it, but, well, it was rather nice. It reminded him of Aziraphale. Damn Aziraphale would give the angel a piece of his mind. The Bentley parked alongside the bookshop, and he quickly stepped up to it, pulling the door open. Muriel looked around in surprise. Sorry, books aren't for sale. Crowley leant against the cabinet, not looking at Muriel, suddenly finding interest in the aged wallpaper. We're going up to heaven. We're going up to heaven. Muriel looked stunned, dropping the book they were holding before quickly picking it up again and carefully placing it on the shelf. I can't do that. I barely escaped trouble last time. Yeah, I did wonder why you weren't angry at me about that, he half muttered. Look, it's for your head archangel. I'm sure he'll excuse you. Muriel shifted uncomfortably, fiddling with the ends of their blazer. Well, I'm sure he would. But the thing is, Metatron seems quite grumpy with Aziraphale at the moment. It was interesting that Muriel felt comfortable enough to refer to Aziraphale by name, and not by some fancy title. Metatron? He knew something was up there. Metatron's offer was too fishy. In fact, he began to realize he wasn't actually there when they had the conversation. He had heard it all from Aziraphale. Had something happened? Muriel seemed to still be on edge, but Crowley was surprised when they reached for a mug, proceeding to drink whatever was in there. Drink. Considering their reaction to tea before, this was certainly unusual. Are you actually drinking that? Muriel looked up, hot chocolate round their lips. They picked up a serviette and wiped it away. Yes, Aziraphale makes sure I have as much as I like. Some of the higher archangels weren't happy that us lower ranks were getting some, but he still sneaks it to us anyway. There's plenty here in the bookshop. Would you like some? It was funny, in a way. Muriel reminded him of his old angel self, the self he had lost to time and that sulphur lake. And it seemed Aziraphale was protecting Muriel. Clearly, something was going right for once. Aziraphale had actually made some changes, albeit small. Muriel was still looking at him, expectantly. Nah, more of a coffee fan myself. Oh yes, Michael is the same. I have some of that too. There's a special kind here Aziraphale said you'd like quite a lot. Oh, but he told me not to tell you that, just to offer it to you. Michael? Archangel Michael? The stuck-up one who had only wanted power. He could hardly see her drinking the coffee. And then the coffee. Well, this just proved Aziraphale was lying. Access to the bookshop, his favourite coffee store especially. Now he really had to go to heaven. Or at least call Aziraphale here. Look, if I can't go to heaven, why don't you bring Aziraphale down here? Muriel looked curious. I've already offered him to come down here. He has lots of different reasons why he can't. It's not exactly my place to say, but it's a bit strange, really. Muriel was even questioning Aziraphale and his motives. My, this really was interesting. Aziraphale had helped Muriel blossom more in a few months than they had grown in their entire lifetime. Maybe Aziraphale really was doing better. Maybe it was better for him to leave. He's really doing better then, making a difference. I mean, you seem happier. Well, at the very least, I'm happier now, as are a lot of the lower ranks, they replied thoughtfully, then their face fell a little. But he's also different. He isn't as cheery as when I first met you both here. I think he really misses you. He seemed to liven up a lot when you gave me that book to bring him, though. He keeps the photos on display all the time. Don't care, Well, that settles it then. He stood up, grabbing one of Aziraphale's bags. Off we pop. Muriel looked a little upset and anxious. I really don't want to cause any more trouble for him. You won't. Suddenly, Crowley turned into a snake and slithered inside the bag, using his tail to point at the handles and indicate for Muriel to pick it up. They won't see me in here. Besides, I'm pretty sure you're doing him a favour. Muriel still looked hesitant. Come on, take off your scarf and put it on top of me if you're worried. That's obvious. Not my scarf, they replied in indignation. Aziraphale gave me this. It's very similar to his. He says it's limited edition as well, only for me. Aziraphale wore a scarf in heaven? But he didn't see it on Earth. Was that what caused the neck injuries? Right, Aziraphale has a few more. Grab one from the hat rack, there we go, and place it on top. He then had an idea. Oh, and I'll need one more thing up there. Muriel realised this was going to be a bigger headache than they had planned. Chapter 9. Pride and Prejudice. Raphael sat at his desk, attempting to focus, but failing miserably. He had his head on his hand as he tapped his pen against the desk, his glasses sitting irritatingly upon his nose. He really couldn't focus. Metatron had asked him to order the angels into their strength and intelligence levels in order to get the best lineup for the second coming. But for one, it wasn't an easy job. He had to search a whole array of books and scrolls to get an idea of each angel's strength. And on top of that, he then had to somehow compare angels that hadn't even met. It really was a headache. And then he was making it even more complicated for himself, as he had a backup plan for if he failed to stop the second coming. He would mix up the order a little, put the wrong angel in the wrong spot. This way, at least, Metatron would have to spend time cleaning up his mistakes. It would give him more time than to delay plans further, and maybe even put a stop to it. Every time he had a plan, he had to scrap it. Things would be so much easier if Metatron wasn't looming over him, if Crowley wasn't being held hostage by that damned Book of Life. He could have told Crowley what he was doing, kept in contact. They could have figured it out together. At the very least, life would be a lot less stressful. He had daydreamed a lot about that. If he had more time, explained it all. How he could send secret messages to Crowley, and without Metatron, he could visit the bookshop. Perhaps Muriel would be there too. They'd prevent the second coming, and then live out their days peacefully. No, that wouldn't work. Heaven would always come up with newer plans, new ways to start a war. No, it was better if Aziraphale stayed here, dealt with it all, and protected the Earth. Besides, he had caused so much hurt to Crowley. At least he could compensate some of it this way. He was dragged from his thoughts by a knock on his door. He sighed before walking over to the door. There was Muriel with a bag. It was one of his. Muriel, what are you doing with that? He asked in a hushed voice. You know Heaven reacts to earthly possessions up here. They better let me get away with it. Muriel nodded. Yep, you're right, my bad. Take it so I don't get in any trouble. Take it so I don't get in any trouble. They made a sound of discomfort before shoving the bag at Aziraphale and hurrying away. This was certainly uncommon for Muriel. Usually, they stayed for a cup of hot chocolate or would sit down and talk about some of their problems with prompting. So why did they leave just like that? He looked down to the bag and found it had multiple scarves in there. He thought he had left them on the rack. Was this a gift from Muriel? He smiled a little, gently placing the bag in the corner of the room. He'd organize it later. He had to figure out his plan first. He returned to his chair and placed his chin on his hand as he looked at the plans as he prayed they'd write themselves. He surely wasn't as lucky. However, what he didn't notice was a slowly growing shadow in the room, the rustling of scarves, the shaking of a bag as it definitely didn't get stuck on someone's foot. Aziraphale huffed, looking up as he removed his glasses, and he froze. There, standing with his arms folded, looking thoroughly unimpressed, was Crowley. Aziraphale stammered for a few moments, unsure what to say before standing up. What are you doing here? They'll try to kill you if they find you. Well, it wouldn't be the first time, Crowley snapped. Crowley rolled his eyes, sitting on the chair opposite to the one Aziraphale had just leapt out of. He lounged on it. Crowley rolled his eyes, sitting on the chair opposite to the one Aziraphale had just leapt out of. He lounged on it. Right, you owe me an explanation. Just what the hell is going on here? Aziraphale's eyes widened. Crowley had come here. For this? No, this is not what he needed. He tried to make his expression neutral, though he guessed he wasn't doing a good job of it. I don't owe you anything, demon. Heaven is where I belong. I don't care about you anymore. That last part left a bitter taste in his mouth, but he fought to stay calm. This was the deciding moment. He could do it. However, Crowley then reached into his pocket, seemingly unbothered. I thought you might say that, so I brought back up. Aziraphale couldn't hide his expression of horror. Aziraphale couldn't hide his expression of horror, and Crowley brought out a flask. But not any flask. The flask. The insurance. Surely you're not... His voice came out quieter and much less confident than before. Well, that all depends on you, Mr. Head Archangel. He casually sloshed the liquid around the bottom of the container. Aziraphale could tell there was still a decent amount in there. Crowley seemed to almost be making a point of it. Well, I don't want you all over my floor, so, you can stop. Crowley raised a brow. Oh, don't worry. If I drink this, I'll completely disappear. He wiggled his fingers. All goo-like and no residue left. No clean-up job. You get the recognition for defeating me, though, of course. Muriel delivered me and you finished the job. Not bad for your reputation, eh? To get you a good steak in heaven. Aziraphale tremored. If Crowley did this, everything would go to waste. He couldn't speak. He felt a lump in his throat. Surely Crowley wouldn't do this. Crowley raised the bottle a little. Well, bottoms up. He raised it, and Aziraphale's eyes widened. He couldn't think, he couldn't hear. All he could see was the demon he loved about to end himself. Stop! All right, you got me. I do care very much. Oh, please don't drink it. Crowley turned to Aziraphale, cocking his eyebrow again, before chugging the whole flask. Aziraphale trembled immensely, reaching across the desk, reaching for it to stop. No! Suddenly, the entire office began to tremble, a gust blowing through the room, knocking all the papers around. Tears filled Aziraphale's eyes as he began to burn with regret and intense mourning. No, Crowley was going to... The demon in question looked back, winking, clearly teasing, but then seemed to take in the situation and suddenly stood up again. No, Angel, I'm not... It wasn't really... Look, I was just trying to get back at you, okay? It's not holy water. The flask was clean. Uriel made sure of it and filled it with regular water. I'm okay. Aziraphale was stunned, shocked, numb, horrified. So many emotions in one angel body. He couldn't quite handle it. Crowley had messed up. He'd been a little angry, a little betrayed. Wanted a little bit of revenge. He was a demon, that's what they did, right? How Aziraphale saw him? Evil, not willing to do good? He just wanted Aziraphale to feel a fraction of the pain he had felt. But now he wasn't sure Aziraphale hadn't been feeling it. Seeing Aziraphale so scared, so upset, and so broken, it felt really wrong. To see his usually glowing angel so devastated. He'd gone too far. Angel, I didn't mean... Oh, Angel, you know I wouldn't... He couldn't quite find the words. You have a funny way of getting back at me. Crowley sighed. Look, I was just upset, okay? You chose heaven, a place that hurt both of us, over us. Surely you understand why I'm upset. Aziraphale seemed hesitant again, as if deciding on something. Crowley removed his glasses. He needed to get through to Aziraphale, come down to his level, communicate. They had to communicate. Please, Angel, just tell me why you did it. Explain it to me. Let me understand. His tone was pleading, desperate. Crowley, I can't. For your own safety, They were interrupted by a knock at the door. Aziraphale's face paled further. It likely wasn't Muriel, given their quick escape, and honestly, any other option wasn't ideal. Crowley quickly nodded at Aziraphale and turned into a snake. Aziraphale sat at his desk, pulling in the chair. Annoyingly, Crowley realized there was a gap between the desk's surface and the floor, and Crowley couldn't balance long enough upright to hide behind a singular leg. There was only one thing for it, however flustering it was. Crowley slithered upwards and settled himself on Aziraphale's lap. He could hear Aziraphale's sharp intake of breath, but Aziraphale likely knew that as well, as he didn't protest. Come in, Aziraphale's voice called out a little shakily. Smooth, controlled footsteps entered the room. Crowley's head peeked down a little from Aziraphale's lap and nearly fell when he realized who it was. Metatron. Aziraphale, I heard some commotions from this room. Is everything okay? He stepped closer. The prayers have come back positive. I assume you've done a good job? Aziraphale clapped his hands together. Yes, I was going to report to you, but then I found this paperwork on my desk and got thoroughly distracted. I take full responsibility, of course. He then heard the other chair creak as Metatron apparently sat down on it. Damn it, he wasn't leaving yet? Why was that damned old man always interfering? He rolled his slitted eyes, resting his head upon Aziraphale's knee, but his tail was flicking angrily. He didn't even notice it was slightly flicking Aziraphale's outer coat. Then he felt something incredibly strange and incredibly gentle. Aziraphale's hand was stroking him, comforting him. The hand was trembling a little, but he was sure that's what was happening. He wasn't some household pet. What was this? He was a demon. But then, Aziraphale's touch was so gentle, so kind, so endearing. His tail stopped flicking. Good to hear. Do give me a proper report. Aziraphale's hand stopped stroking him. The still legs he was sitting on began to jiggle a little. If he couldn't have revenge this way, maybe he could have it another way. He flicked Aziraphale's topcoat again. After a moment, the hand returned to stroking him once more, and this time the hand trembled a lot less. On top of this, the mysterious nervous legs seemed to quell as well. Crowley was rather pleased with himself. He even managed to control the budding urge to hiss at the man worrying his angel. Well, there's not really much to report on, I suppose. I commanded the, demon to stop, and he did. I told him I didn't care about him anymore, so he needed to stop these publicity stunts. He was rather unimpressed, to say the least, but I think it worked. There was a few moments of silence. Something felt off. All of a sudden, Metatron slammed a hand on the table. Crowley was nearly launched from Aziraphale's lap as he jolted. He raised his head a little again, prepared to attack. Maybe if he turned into a bigger snake, Metatron wouldn't recognize him? Yes, maybe then he could... Do not lie to me, Aziraphale. I may not understand human affection well, but I do know that 6,000 hard-worked years don't just go down the drain like that. Do you take me as a fool? Must I remind you what I'll do to you and that little demon of yours if you don't comply with me? Metatron boomed. Funny. This was the first time Crowley had heard Metatron truly angry. But what was chilling was that Metatron really had threatened both himself and Aziraphale. Was Aziraphale doing this all for the both of them? Did he really not have a choice in all this? He noticed Aziraphale's hand had stopped petting him, instead trembling once more, unknowingly resting upon Crowley's scales. Did Aziraphale think that he would be mad Aziraphale didn't tell him? Well, he wasn't exactly impressed. But I could never stay mad at you, Angel. He changed his position a little, instead wrapping himself around Aziraphale's hand once, resting his head upon it. A sign of comfort and of love. That it's okay. Aziraphale discreetly placed his other hand on the top of Crowley. Wow, this angel had really gone bolder. Look, I did not lie to you. I didn't say he instantly moved on, did I? I said he was rather unimpressed, and he was, and he will be for a while, so don't you dare call me a liar. Oh, this side of Aziraphale was really something. In a good way, that is. As of late, he had noticed Aziraphale had become a lot firmer. Like the day in the bookshop, he told the higher-ups of both heaven and hell to be quiet and take their turns. It was impressive. Even Metatron seemed stunned for a moment. He sighed. Perhaps I was being harsh on you, Aziraphale. The storm did stop, after all. Metatron stood up again, but his voice was little more menacing now. Just make sure you remember your place. He couldn't tell what was going on, because there was silence for a few moments. Then the Metatron turned and exited the room. Crowley waited for a few moments before quickly slithering out and sitting on the chair again. Aziraphale seemed to refuse to make eye contact. All right, all cards are down now. He looked intensely at Aziraphale. No more lies. What is going on? Chapter 10. The Truth. Aziraphale shifted uncomfortably for a moment. How could he even begin? Part of him wanted to hide it still. Keep up this false reality where, in his mind at least, Crowley would be safe, not knowing about it, not feeling any guilt. Angel, the soft voice spoke. He suddenly looked up to match Crowley's gaze. He looked away again. Right, yes, I suppose I do owe you an explanation, he sighed. Well, you see, as you know, Heaven was threatening to use extreme sanctions. But Metatron had brushed that off, right? Crowley inquired. Well, technically yes, but with conditions. And those conditions were that either both of us came to Heaven, or I did, with the condition that I could not visit Earth. Unless I had a mission, of course. Crowley's voice was gentle now, inquiring. So why didn't you tell me? You stopped the apocalypse, we could have figured this out too. There wasn't time, Aziraphale replied with exasperation. And he might have been watching, and even without that, I didn't want to pressure you. I know you hate it here. I know what they did to you, Crowley. Crowley stood up now, suddenly appearing a lot more frustrated. So you know what they did and still came here anyway. Come on, surely you can see that's stupid. Aziraphale stood up now, though he still wasn't angry, more defensive and desperate. He had to make Crowley understand. He had to. But there's still some hope here. I have more to give. I can make a difference. I already have, in fact. Look at Muriel. They're flourishing. They're... Angel, you don't get it. You've given enough already. We both have. All heaven does is take and take and take until there is nothing left. If you keep on giving, they will take all of you. And I can't let them do that to you. But I haven't treated you much better, have I? Crowley seemed taken aback by this for a moment, but then he looked angry, his voice lower, almost a growl. You didn't kick me out. Aziraphale looked thoroughly irritated now. You don't get it. I've had time to think while I was here, and I've realized that I was the one that told you the stars would be destroyed. Didn't stop you from asking questions. Angel, that wasn't... Crowley tried to interrupt. No, I'm not stopping, not now. I melted that body, caused Morag to die prematurely, all because of my silly ideals. Elsbeth led a better life after that. You gave her your money. It doesn't matter, he unintentionally snapped back. Money doesn't take the place of a life. And who took the fall for that mistake? Cleaned up my mess? You. I know Hell didn't treat you with sunshine and daisies after that. It's always you. You coming to help me. You sacrificed yourself. You didn't even tell me you didn't have the apartment anymore. He didn't even notice the tears beginning to build in his eyes. So forgive me for wanting to protect Earth and the stars. Protect you and the only place you are safe. There was silence for a few moments as Aziraphale stared at Crowley, a little out of breath from his rant. Crowley didn't seem to move for a moment either. It was almost like a stalemate. Aziraphale sighed as he looked away for a moment. Look, But he was cut off as he was pulled into an embrace. He was stunned for a moment. He hadn't expected any of this. Well, he had done an awful job of scaring Crowley away. And he was grateful for it. He hadn't realized he'd been trembling a little. Slowly, hesitantly, he raised his arms and accepted the hug. And suddenly, everything seemed okay. Any issues, any conflicts, any enemies, they couldn't harm him while he was here in Crowley's arms. Tears began to slip down from his eyes, tears that should have been shed that day in the bookshop. Things would be okay. I forgive you. Crowley's voice was suspiciously hoarse. Had he been crying too? Suddenly, Aziraphale stepped back. Crowley seemed surprised and a little upset. No, you don't forgive me yet. Crowley raised an eyebrow. I'm pretty sure that's my decision to make. Aziraphale shook his head. No, you forgive too easily. Crowley sighed before seemingly getting an idea. All right then, do the apology dance. Aziraphale was caught off guard again. Well, I don't think... No, you said it yourself. I forgive you too easily, so I want the dance. Crowley crossed his arms, smirking. Or do you not want my forgiveness? Oh, all right. Aziraphale huffed. He stepped in front of his desk once more to have more space. But then Crowley came round to the other side of the desk too, facing Aziraphale. Wait, I'm the one doing the dance. Why are you round here too? Crowley suddenly found interest in the ceiling. Well, I suppose that maybe I was throwing myself into danger without talking to you about it first, and I guess that maybe I shouldn't have done that. Aziraphale smiled softly. Oh, Crowley. You don't have to apologize for that. Oh, just shut up and let me do it, Angel. Aziraphale was taken aback for a moment before he smiled. You were right, I was wrong, you were right. And they finished with a bow to each other. The two then stood up straight, or as straight as Crowley's poor posture would allow, and looked at each other. They stared for a moment, then another, and finally the two broke into laughter. We really are idiots, aren't we? Crowley asked, a small grin on his lips. Indeed, Aziraphale agreed. Crowley then clapped his hands together. Right, he started, before lounging on the chair again. So what are we doing about all... He spun his finger, gesturing to the room. This. Aziraphale looked around the room. Oh, wow, he had made a mess. Oh, yes, I suppose I should clean that up. I didn't realize I'd made such a mess. Getting used to your new Archangel powers, eh, Angel? Crowley swished his hand around and the room was suddenly clean. Nah, that's not hard to deal with. What we need to figure out is how we're going to get rid of the Book of Life. And Aziraphale looked stunned. Get rid of it? Crowley, God created that herself. Who knows if it's even destructible? You think so? Crowley scoffed. Nah, a bit of hellfire and we're all good. Glorified book. I know you don't like burning books, Angel, but this one's necessary. I see, he wondered. I suppose I may be able to access it through my position as head Archangel. If not, I'll have to trick Metatron somehow. Crowley chuckled. Nah, you're an awful liar. Use this instead. Suddenly, one of his wings appeared and extended, and he plucked out one feather. He then gestured for Aziraphale to extend his hand. Aziraphale obliged, and Crowley passed the feather over. When you find where it's stored, this should get you in, as long as nothing has changed. I mean, they don't change the password, so I doubt they change their keys either. Aziraphale nodded, ever so carefully placing it into his pocket. Right, I'll get on top of that. Once that's burnt, Heaven would lose its power too. Well, a decent chunk of it. Most importantly, Metatron would lose his authority over us. Crowley nodded. Easy peasy. Indeed. The two were quiet for a moment. Right, I'm afraid that means I need to see you out now then. Crowley looked disappointed. Yeah, I suppose so. So you can, get to work on all this. Yes. It was now Aziraphale really felt the weight of words left unsaid. Words that should and needed to be said, but couldn't yet. There wasn't time. There was never enough time. But there would be. All right then. Into the bag and I'll take you to the elevator. Crowley rolled his eyes before turning into a snake and hopping into the basket. Aziraphale placed the scarves on top once more, making sure Crowley was no longer visible. He gripped the basket tightly and began to walk through the corridors. He received a few glances, but no one would question the head archangel. Finally, he was just outside the lift. He pressed the button to call it, and he heard it slowly rise. He turned to the bag, pretending to be adjusting scarves and muttering to himself. I'll send you letters, okay? We'll be able to figure this out. Crowley did not reply, instead flicked his tongue over the fingers, grasping the bag, before burying his head under the scarves. Aziraphale chuckled as it tickled a lot. Finally, the lift arrived and he placed it down. Right, I'll see you. Aziraphale, don't you dare send that demon back! Aziraphale turned to see the Metatron there, clearly full of rage. Metatron raised his hand, aiming for the bag. He was going to attack. He heard the scarves rustling as Crowley was apparently returning to his humanoid form. No, it was too dangerous here. Aziraphale turned, exchanging a meaningful glance with Crowley. Aziraphale's eyes were firm, and Crowley suddenly filled with worry as he realized what Aziraphale was about to do. Angel, no! Aziraphale pressed the door closing button. The door shut just before Metatron could reach them, and Crowley was sent down. Gone. Safe. Crowley was safe. Chapter 11. Hell's Fire. Crowley tried to kick the door open, anger and worry rushing over him in waves, intensifying as each kick failed to do anything. The lift didn't even shake. He had almost broken the button trying to send it back down. He sucked in air through his teeth as he vented his rage before he snapped his head back and yelled out in frustration. Suddenly, the whole elevator shook. He put his hands on the wall as he was nearly thrown. What was going on? The elevator suddenly descended at a faster speed. Suddenly, it stopped and the doors opened. He ignored them, attempting again to aggressively press the button to go up again. The lift did not budge. Muriel quickly ran out of the bookshop. Something feels wrong in heaven. Crowley turned to them. Can you sense it? What's going on? Is an angel hurt? I don't know, they replied in a worried tone, hopping in the elevator too, but the button wasn't working for them either. It's not working, the elevator, it's been cut off. Crowley growled, stepping out and looking up. Find us another one then. Muriel nodded, clearly starting to panic. They'd memorized a few different locations. They could do this. They ran across the street, Crowley following them. The lift appeared in the back alley, and Muriel quickly stepped in, aggressively pressing the button. It's not working either. This whole area's been cut off. Crowley stomped his foot. Oh, aziraphale, what have you done now? Muriel looked at Crowley with worry. Aziraphale, Is this because I brought you up there? Oh, I'm sorry, I really didn't want anything to happen to him. Crowley suddenly got an idea. You angels can teleport up there. Can you take me? Muriel shifted uncomfortably. I don't think so. Only I can. I need you to go up there and see what's going on, and find a lift that works. His hand did a quick spin, and a small button appeared. As soon as you find one, press this button. Muriel nodded. Right, okay, I got it. Bye. They looked up and suddenly turned into blinding light as they ascended to heaven. Crowley let out a shaky sigh as he realized he'd have to wait. Please be okay. Aziraphale, how dare you disobey me? Do you not remember our deal? Metatron stepped towards the lift, but Aziraphale stood in front of it, his arms spread. I won't let you touch him. Move! Metatron bellowed, shooting a beam of light forward. It hit Aziraphale straight in the chest. He fell down, shocked. This really hurt. How could Metatron shoot one of his own? Angels are meant to be pure and holy. Why? Yet horror filled him when Metatron raised his hand again at the lift. No! Yet Aziraphale was too weak to stand. The blast had really injured him. The beam of light went straight for the elevator, and the whole thing shook. Crowley! This wouldn't do. This wasn't... How dare you! The entirety of heaven began to quake. Metatron took a step back. Lightning began to strike down from the ceiling, and a strong gust began to whip around heaven. Metatron began to laugh menacingly. The entirety of heaven began to quake. Metatron took a step back. Lightning began to strike down from the ceiling, and a strong gust began to whip around heaven. Metatron began to laugh menacingly. There you are. I've been waiting for you, Raphael. Aziraphale, or rather Raphael, turned to Metatron, rage filling his eyes. He didn't care what his name was. He didn't care about anything. Metatron had to pay. Heaven had to pay. Raphael began to rise into the air, and bolts began striking at Metatron. Metatron jumped back, trembling. No, this wasn't meant to happen. You were supposed to be on our side, Heaven's side, meant to be our ultimate weapon. I will end you. Metatron stumbled back, and Raphael aimed his hand to deal a killing blow when he heard a sound of surprise to his side. He turned to see Muriel, looking scared and terrified. Raphael's eyes slowly faded to those of Aziraphale's. Aziraphale! They cried out in confusion. However, Raphael's eyes returned as the angel's head snapped back to see Metatron standing up and beginning to run away. He let out a roar of anger, flying after him in pursuit. He would avenge Crowley. Muriel fell to the floor, unable to stay stable amidst the ground's strong shakes. This strange being was Aziraphale? The kind, gentle auburn eyes of the head archangel had been replaced with a crimson shade, and his shorter, soft locks had changed into shoulder-length ones. Most noticeably, however, was that there was an extra eye on Aziraphale's forehead and one on each cheek. Aziraphale's 2 wings were now 4, spread widely around as he pursued Metatron. Muriel stood up, bracing themselves. They had to find a working lift. Aziraphale may well destroy heaven if he kept this up. They began to run as they thought through what lifts they knew. It seemed Aziraphale's rage was what was breaking the lift. The earthquakes were severing the connection between Earth and heaven. They had to make it to a lift that Aziraphale hadn't touched yet. As they ran, they were rushed by a sense of sadness. They had never seen Aziraphale so upset. He was always so cheery or was a bit sad. So what was causing all this anger? They continued to run, beginning to pass by angel desks now, and they were shocked to find they were all still orderly. The desks were still shaking and the angels on the chairs were wobbling, but the papers were all still laying orderly on the desks. They'd been miracled there. Suddenly, a desk was about to fall on an unsuspecting lower-rank angel. Oh, this would really hurt! They were about to call out when suddenly the desk swerved round, returning to wobble in its original position. Had Aziraphale miracled everything to cause minimal damage? Just how powerful was Aziraphale? This led them to have an increase in their sprint speed, but then... Oh no, there was a row of desks lined up, like a barrier. Was Aziraphale still trying to protect them? No, this couldn't stop them. They put on a serious look before suddenly springing out their wings. But the gust was quite strong. Still, they fought to rise to the top. To make it. They could do it! There! Their hand reached the top of the desks and they pulled themselves over the wall. With renewed strength, they flew forward, fighting against the gusts. They could do it, they just had to keep searching. And finally, there it was, an elevator in the distance, and it hadn't been affected by the quakes yet. They flew with great intensity. Their wings were starting to cramp up, but they had to keep going. Aziraphale had done so much for them, and Crowley, well, they had mixed feelings about Crowley so far, but Aziraphale was so very fond of him, so they had faith in Crowley too. With one final push, they tumbled into the lift, landing unceremoniously. They stood up, shaking off their wings, and giggled to themselves at how well they'd done. Aziraphale was going to be really proud. Aziraphale! They quickly pressed the button, and the lift began to go down. For now, at least, it was smooth. Crowley could fix this. They didn't care if they got in trouble. Aziraphale was the priority now. Everything else could be sorted out later. They stepped out and pressed the button. For a few seconds, nothing happened. They pressed it again and again. Why wasn't it working? But then they looked up, and there, in the distance, was a form of a bird flying towards them. Wait, no, not a bird. It was Crowley using his wings. The demon quickly landed and got in the lift. Right, debrief me. Muriel nodded. Crowley was glad to see they were okay, if a little ruffled. He was starting to get fond of the little angel. Okay, so Aziraphale is okay, but he's gone really weird. He's made this weird storm and the whole of heaven is shaking. Oh, really? Crowley chuckled. Good on him. Is that all? Muriel shook their head. No, he looks really weird. His hair is longer and he has 4 wings and he's got 5 eyes. 5 eyes? Funny, he doesn't like changing his style much, he replied casually. Aren't you worried? Muriel asked desperately. Was he worried? Well, of course he was. Very worried. But now he knew Aziraphale was the one in control and causing chaos, he felt a lot calmer, as this meant it was likely everyone else but his angel in the line of fire. And that was better than nothing. I've known Aziraphale for over 6,000 years. He'll get through this. We always do. The lift's doors suddenly opened, and Crowley was hit by a sudden gust of wind. Wow, this was intense. Aziraphale really was going for it. Muriel followed behind, much slower and clearly tired. However, he didn't trust the lift to safely bring the little angel back. He also doubted they'd go back willingly anyway. He raised his wing around them, using it to shield them from the gust. Stay under here, the wind is strong, he said offhandedly and casually, as if it meant nothing. But to Muriel, it meant everything. For the first time in their life, they felt safe. Okay. They folded their arms and stayed there safely as the two began to walk forward. This area was much messier. Desks and papers everywhere, and noticeably, no angels. Where is everyone? He called back to Muriel, who seemed to bear a resemblance to a shielding baby bird. Aziraphale built a wall of desks back there to keep the other angels away. Not a single one is hurt. Sounds like him. Crowley rolled his eyes under his sunglasses. Finally, the two began to see something. A swarming sphere of desks, chairs, paper, everything. And there, in the center, was Aziraphale and the Metatron. Chapter 12. Raphael's Fury. Crowley raised an arm in front of his eyes to try and shield them. The gust was very strong. He had never seen Aziraphale like this before. He stepped forward, trying to get closer, but the gales kept him back. It seemed the circle around Aziraphale was the most intense, unable to be passed through. Raphael, you were not meant to harm other angels, you were meant to defend us. What are you doing? Crowley squinted his eyes to try and see through the mass of various objects being thrown about. Raphael? Was this some kind of new form? Or was this someone imitating Aziraphale? You do not deserve anyone's protection, let alone mine. You are a monster. He'd know that voice anywhere. That was definitely Aziraphale. But his voice seemed to boom and echo. Just what had gotten his angel so riled up? He turned to the other angel shielding under his wing. I'm going to fly up and see if there's a way to get through. Use your wings to shield yourself and stay away from them. Muriel nodded, sprinting a bit further back but still watching the scene. They lifted their wings, shielding themselves, but peeking through still to keep an eye on what was going on. He checked to see Muriel was safe before beginning to fly up. He really should thank them at some point. Buy them a whole crate of hot chocolates. Crowley flew up, desperately avoiding the flying desks as he attempted to get closer. It wasn't going to be easy. Aziraphale seemed to be determined to keep Metatron trapped there. "I have been kind to you," said Being replied. "I offered you an escape to not be written out of the Book of Life, and this is how you repay me?" Crowley was knocked back a bit as the storm suddenly got much more intense. Muriel seemed to still be standing, at least, but he was really starting to struggle to stay up now. "Kind? What kindness?" Aziraphale seemed to be glowing now, and lightning bolts struck around him. Surprisingly, however, tears began to fall from Aziraphale's original 2 eyes. "You killed the demon I loved! You took away our chance of eternity! You deserve worse than hell!" Crowley couldn't breathe for a moment. The demon I loved. Surely that couldn't be. Suddenly, he lost focus, and a desk went flying into him, gliding with his wings. He fell to the ground, and he gritted his teeth as he landed with an unceremonious thud. He lifted his wing and raised a hand to where the desk collided. It came back red. Blood. Well, it wasn't broken, at least. It was still usable. He stood, flexing it to get it working again. It hurt more than he liked to admit, but he didn't care. He had to get to Aziraphale. He flew up again, fighting against the gales. "Aziraphale! Aziraphale, I'm okay. I survived the lift. Aziraphale!" That wasn't working either. Aziraphale clearly couldn't hear him. He desperately wanted to try to fly around the perimeter, but there were no holes in the defense, as expected of Aziraphale. There was only one thing for it. He took a deep breath and braced himself. He began to fly through the barrier, his wings burning with exertion as he fought through it. Various objects began to hit him, but he had to keep going. A file hit him. Keep going. A chair hit him. Keep going. Another desk smashed against his wings. Keep going. He was nearly there. Finally, he made it to the inner circle where it was less turbulent. He tumbled downward, landing in a heap. Damn, it was almost as bad as the neck cramp he got the other day from sleeping in the Bentley. He juggled himself as he fought to try and stand. He stood up, a little shakily, but firmly. "Aziraphale!" The angel in question turned, their expression immediately shifting from one of rage to a very gentle one. Aziraphale's glow reduced, and his eyes changed from a crimson to their usual pretty shade. Not that the red wasn't pleasant, in fact, Crowley found it rather endearing. The angel landed on the floor and kneeled beside Crowley, using his wings to shield the two from the Metatron. "Crowley! But the lift, you—" Crowley raised his hand to gently place it on Aziraphale's cheek. "I'm okay, Angel. The lift didn't fall very far." "But you're hurt. How did—" A look of horror then passed over his face. "Don't tell me I—" No, it's my fault. I chose to fly through it, didn't I?" Well, I suppose so, but—" "Suppose so basically means yes. Don't be so fancy," he winked, before sitting up properly and moving his hand. "Besides, your head archangel, Raphael, was it? What you say goes." The gusts began to slow, although Aziraphale was clearly ensuring that Metatron was contained within the circle. Aziraphale looked surprised again. "Raphael? Oh, yes, I'm not quite sure what that's about." "5 eyes, then. Not bad," Crowley teased. "5? I have 5 eyes." Aziraphale miracled a mirror and was surprised at his appearance. "Oh, I suppose I do. I'm not quite sure how that happened." "Didn't think you were. You've caused quite a mess in heaven," Crowley smirked. "I'm impressed." Aziraphale looked around and realized the chaos he was causing. He seemed to suddenly get an idea as he shifted round, an excitable look on his face. "May I?" Crowley looked confused. Sure." He wasn't quite sure what Aziraphale was asking, but it was hard to ever say no to his angel. He was still shocked to feel Aziraphale's hands on his wings, and even more shocked when his wings were suddenly fixed, as good as new. Aziraphale sat back, smiling. "Not a bad job, Angel. You—" He didn't get to finish his sentence as Aziraphale suddenly jumped onto him, hugging him. Oh, Crowley, please don't ever scare me like that again. I really don't know what I'd do without you. Crowley embraced the angel back, closing his eyes for a moment and taking in the moment. He was safe here, with his angel. No matter what, right in that exact moment, nothing would harm them. Yet suddenly, he pulled back from the hug, but his hands still clung onto the angel's arms. His glasses were lost in the gusts somewhere. He didn't care. Right, we're going to clear it up this time. No more dancing around it. We're being clear about it. I'll go first. Well, oh, damn it. I love you, Angel. Like the silly humans do, like Maggie and Nina do. Aziraphale looked stunned for a moment, but this time it didn't seem panicked. More caught off guard. Well, Am I interrupting? Metatron sneered, walking around the side of them to see what was going on. Crowley raised his wings, creating a little bubble around them. He poked his head through. Yes, you are. Quite rude, actually. I'm not letting you get away with it this time. He then returned to inside the wings. Metatron seemed to stomp his foot and walk away again. Right, Angel, your turn. What do you... Aziraphale shifted to kneeling, leant forward, and kissed Crowley. He had to admit, it was foreign and new, but this time, it felt like love. He understood now why humans liked it so much. It was soft, it was warm, it was gentle. Aziraphale clearly was new to it as well, having an edge of shyness to the action. It made Crowley feel rather proud. This was likely Aziraphale's first kiss, and it was all his. Aziraphale pulled away, noticeably blushing. It was adorable. The angel didn't make eye contact, instead looking to the side. Whether you're a demon, an angel, a human, or some strange creature, I love you too, Crowley. Crowley's heart filled with love, the doubts of his previous confession being drowned out by the new. He couldn't help it. He burst out into fits of laughter. Aziraphale seemed confused and a little nervous. He smiled. Sorry, Angel, We really are a funny two, aren't we? Aziraphale smiled, then began to laugh as well. Crowley looked at Aziraphale, and Aziraphale looked at Crowley. 6,000 years. They really were silly, weren't they? Everything seemed so simple and funny now. Look, can you please stop this so we can get to the matter at hand? Metatron snapped. Oh, you're such a spoil sport, you old fart, Crowley snapped. Suddenly, Aziraphale got an idea. He placed a finger to his lips, and suddenly all the gusts and objects slowly settled back to where they were supposed to be. Aziraphale slowly shifted back into his regular self and stood up. I'm unsure what happened. Is everyone okay? Metatron narrowed his eyes at Aziraphale. What do you mean you're unsure what happened? You did it. Aziraphale feigned confusion. I did? Last thing I remember, I was near the lifts, and then I was on the floor. It was rather unceremonious of me, I do apologize. Metatron seemed only half convinced, scrutinizing Aziraphale, but then he sighed. It was difficult for angels to lie, after all, and for Aziraphale, he was always obvious when he did. But the angel seemed to have found newfound confidence. Right, okay. Everything does seem to be put into order once more. Oh, this really is a headache. Metatron placed a hand to his forehead. You are handling the paperwork. Go straight back to your office, Aziraphale. Muriel, just get this blasted demon out of here. Oh, this really isn't good for me. Crowley glanced over to Aziraphale. A small smile played on Aziraphale's lips as he walked away, holding the black feather out. Crowley grinned back. Aziraphale was going to find the Book of Life. Everyone else had left. Metatron was left standing there on his own. When it was clear, he began to grin, then laugh, laughing harder and harder until it was maniacal. So this was the true power of Raphael. Chapter 13, Archives of Heaven. Aziraphale paced his office back and forth, It had been a week since the incident, and things in heaven had calmed down. Aziraphale had been made to make a public apology. The other angels weren't impressed, but had no choice but to accept it. Aziraphale did feel a little guilty that he had caused so much damage, but then he also didn't quite know how it happened. Surprisingly, he learned he still had the ability to summon various features he had before. It was like there was a box that had been locked and kept inside him, and all of a sudden it was open. He had mixed feelings about it. He was glad to have the powers to defend Crowley, of course, but then he didn't like that he wasn't fully in control of them. It was as if they had listened to his heart and carried out his wishes without his mind playing a part in it. That was fine in that the angels were free from injury, but not fine in that he had hurt Crowley so badly, and that he had nearly destroyed Metatron. It's not that he didn't harbour any ill will towards Metatron. No, quite the opposite. But that if he truly harmed Metatron, God would then notice. He was worried Crowley would get punished for it. Crowley couldn't fall again, but this was God. They could end his precious demon's life instantly. Funnily enough, the idea of falling hadn't been as scary to Aziraphale as of late. Heaven was really something, and that something was becoming more and more awful in his mind. Each time he closed a problem, a new one formed, and he found heaven to become more and more intolerable. The idea of falling, being away from all of this, not having to worry, and just being able to be with Crowley. He sighed. No, this wouldn't do. Crowley would scold him if he heard all of this. He opened his drawer, looked around, and took out a letter, sitting down for a moment. Now that he and Crowley had finally confessed their feelings for one another, he had found the distance harder and harder. Muriel was happy to oblige in helping deliver the letters between the two. Ever since that day, Muriel had somehow become even closer with the two. He had learned from his letters as well that Crowley was becoming rather fond of Muriel, even though he wouldn't admit it. For example, Crowley was writing small reports in each letter about the condition of the bookshop, and each section was full of grudging compliments for how Muriel was treating the shop. He also insisted that Crowley tell him about how the day had been, and this was littered with plenty of small details. For example, Crowley had stated he had found a new brand of hot chocolate for Aziraphale to try when he returned to the bookshop. Also had complained about the specific way Muriel liked their hot chocolate prepared. This wouldn't be that important, except that Muriel would drink it without anything if needs be. But Crowley would insist, with false grumpiness, on putting cream and marshmallows onto it, with a little dash of chocolate powder on top. Aziraphale found this quite sweet, as this is the way Crowley had made her chocolate for him in the past as well. It was adorable. These reports are what helped keep Aziraphale sane. Ideas of what they'd do when he came back, because he definitely would come back. What they'd drink at the Ritz. What blankets they'd sit under in the bookshop. What West End shows Crowley thought Aziraphale would like, and vice versa. He could be home soon. It was just a matter of time. Which led to his current predicament. He had been searching restlessly to find the location of the Book of Life whilst tackling the papers from his incident, but had found absolutely nothing. In a last-ditch attempt, he decided to pace to see if it would clear his head a little. Considering that he was back sitting at his desk, perusing the letter again, he hadn't made much progress. My dearest angel Aziraphale. Crowley seemed to address every letter this way. Aziraphale found it rather sweet, and a little out of character for Crowley. Crowley was likely doing it to bring a smile to his face, and that made it even more special. The bookshop is still too boring without you here. I know I say it every time, but it's true. Muriel is nice company, but it's not you, Angel. I don't know how to describe it. It's not that it's too quiet, Muriel feels the quiet hours going on about their books, but it's like a cake with no icing. Sweet, but too bland. Does that make sense? God, I sound so stupid. That part made him giggle every time. It was so sweet, far from what you'd expect from a demon. Not that it mattered anyway. I'm sorry you're there all alone. If I were there, I'd sit beside you until you got so annoyed with me you'd bat me away. You say you're too pure for that, but nah. I can be rather annoying, but it's your fault now that you have to deal with that. and glad he was that he got to. Muriel hasn't said anything, but they've gone all fidgety, so I can tell they want to bring this to you already. They had a meeting due today, they said, although I suspect they want to go early to spend some time with you. I don't blame them. I'll say goodbye to you now then. See you soon, Angel. Love you. Your especially annoying demon, Crowley. Aziraphale smiled and held the letter to his chest. Yes, things would be okay. He was loved. He was so loved, in fact, that he learnt Crowley took a class in the 19th century specifically to be able to write like this. Crowley had bragged about it in his first letter to Aziraphale. Aziraphale adored learning small details like these. Somehow, it made him love Crowley even more. He sighed, gently placing the letter back in the drawer. He opened up the folder again, looking through each and every individual page and checking the fine print. He had found plenty of details on what the Book of Life was and the details of its history, but nothing on its location. This was one of the highest ranks of books. Why was there nothing here? He took off his glasses for a moment and rubbed his eyes. A knock suddenly resounded from the door. Aziraphale quickly hid the folder in his drawer before straightening up. Come in. He knew by the quick entry and excitable footsteps that this was Muriel. He took the file back out again, resting it on his desk. Hello, Muriel. How are you? I'm very good, thank you, Muriel replied cheerily. I just came to check on you. Oh, and to give you this. They extended a singular flower towards Aziraphale. Aziraphale took it. It was gorgeous, fresh lavender with dewdrops upon it. It's from Crowley, they continued. He said there's something about flower language? I don't speak it, but he said you probably do. Indeed I do, Aziraphale smiled softly. Lavender, the flower of devotion. Oh, Crowley, you really are a sap, he thought fondly. Oh, what are you looking at? Muriel looked at the file. Can I help you? Aziraphale debated it for a moment. He was trying to keep minimal people involved for safety, but, well, Muriel had avoided trouble so far. And of course, he trusted them completely. Okay, but you must remember not to talk to anyone about this. This is top secret and does not leave this office. I need to find the location of this book. Muriel nodded dutifully before sitting on the chair and looking at the file. Their reading speed for files was incredibly impressive. For their fiction books, they read a lot slower in order to take it all in and enjoy it, but for files like these, they could absorb the key information and read through it. They looked puzzled for a moment. The Book of Life? Why do you want to find this? You'll get into a lot of trouble. Aziraphale nodded. Yes, indeed. But I plan to leave heaven after this. Get away from it all. Not have to worry anymore. You'd be more than welcome to come too, you know. Me? Really? Muriel looked very excited for a moment. Well, I do quite like it here. I'd have to think about it. They looked lost in thought before returning to the book and taking out some strange device from their pocket. It looked like an extremely thick magnifying glass. Aziraphale had never seen anything like it. I think it says it here. But hang on, there's a code. I just need to get the right lenses. It took them a few moments of switching the lens order around, but finally, the lens was on the correct setting. There, I got it, they declared proudly. A few beats of silence passed as Muriel looked at Aziraphale proudly. Very well done, but where is it? Oh, Muriel looked surprised for a moment before continuing. Sorry about that. Well, it says that to access this folder, you have to be high rank, and to solve this, you have to be intelligent. Me, intelligent. Aziraphale waited patiently for them to continue. The Book of Life is contained in... Yet suddenly, their face fell. Metatron's office. Chapter 14. Standing Up. Aziraphale was, once more, pacing. Of all the places the book could have been locked in, Metatron's office? Well, he supposed it made sense. Metatron was the closest to God, and the higher-ranking angels were very rarely actually in heaven. Metatron was the only logical option. So how would he cause a distraction? Metatron only left his office to nag Aziraphale about something, or for plans surrounding the Second Coming, and both of those plans had faults. Why don't you invite him to your office for some hot chocolate? Even Metatron couldn't turn that down, Muriel suggested, their hands wrapped around their own warm mug. You'd be surprised, replied Aziraphale glumly. I'm not sure exactly where in the office it is either. All I know is that Crowley's feather is the only thing that'll allow me access. Why is his feather the key? Muriel asked curiously. He wasn't always a demon, Aziraphale replied. In fact, he was a rather high-ranking angel. Muriel paused, confused. But if he was so high-ranking, surely he had everything. Why did he fall? That second part I can't answer. That is something only he has the right to talk about. He sighed forlornly. As for the former, heaven isn't the way humans depict it, nor how their Bible depicts it. Heaven would have you believe that angels are intensely kind, and that the higher rank you are, the more power you have. But really, do we have any power if we're just doing what we're told? Quite frankly, I don't believe I have any more power than you do. Muriel looked at their hot chocolate for a moment before placing it down. Ah, maybe he had gone too far. After all, Muriel still had some faith in heaven, and had no plans to leave. But maybe they should. And that's why you want the Book of Life, to have more power. Muriel looked up, earnest, watching Aziraphale so intently. Ah. They were beginning to question things. No, I want to destroy it, he replied firmly. I want to remove that power from Metatron. But then no one has power, and surely that's worse. Why not have one person with the power, or some really nice people can share it? Then heaven remains a dictatorship. The only way to deal with a situation like this is to destroy it at its source. Only then can we pray that something changes. At the very least, you, Crowley, and I can all live without fear of complete destruction. But the Second Coming, Muriel spoke in an upset tone. If that happens, I'll get destroyed anyway, and all my co-workers too, no matter if the Book of Life is there or not. It's okay, Aziraphale soothed, finally coming over and placing a hand on their shoulder. Whether I'm up here or residing on Earth, I will stop the Second Coming. But first, I have to get rid of this book. Muriel nodded. All right, I'll help you, they grinned cheerily. We don't want a dictatorship after all. Oh, Muriel, I can't let you do that, he stepped back. If I fail, I'll be written out of the Book of Life completely. I can't let that happen to you as well. It won't happen, they replied earnestly. You're Aziraphale, the head archangel. I'm sure you can do it. Muriel, you don't understand. If you are written out of the Book of Life, you won't just be gone. It'll be like you never existed. Heaven already treats me that way. There was a serious look on their face, but a sense of softness. He could tell they were being genuine. You and Crowley are the only ones that treat me with genuine kindness. If you two aren't here, it'll be just like I never existed anyway. I won't have made a difference. Muriel. Muriel's eyes widened at Aziraphale's sudden change in tone of voice. Just by being here, you have made a difference. Your worth isn't based on how supposedly valuable you are to others. It is dictated by how you view yourself. I have been given the role of head archangel, which by default would make me incredibly important. But you have never referred to me as such, and I have never wanted to you. Because my worth is not from being a head archangel, but by simply being Aziraphale. Muriel didn't speak for a moment. They seemed stunned. Since becoming head archangel, Aziraphale had seen far too many angels with this mindset, himself a victim in the past. That was what heaven did. That's what angels were made to be. But he refused. Then, if I judge my own worth by myself... Muriel suddenly looked up, a look of determination in their eyes. Then I want to help you. I want to be an angel that I can be proud of and that you and Crowley will be proud of. Not just the angel who reads for others every few hundred years. I want to do something important. I want to help you. It was Aziraphale's turn to be surprised. After all this, Muriel was still adamant to help? But no, this was different. This was Muriel's own independent will, not to help others or to do what they were told. They wanted to help. Oh, Muriel, he replied fondly, I already am. Crowley parked the Bentley outside an old abandoned shop. Legend has it that it used to be an old antique shop. Nah, it was, in fact, a secret entrance to hell. The front was graffitied with various names and drawings. He swaggered up to the chipped and poorly tainted door and knocked a certain pattern. Knock 4 times, pause, knock once, pause, knock once, then thump, then knock twice more. Repeat that last step. The door slowly creaked open and stepped inside. It smelt awful. Had no one taken care of this entrance at all? Well, good for him, he supposed. He moved to the till, punching in 3 numbers, 666, and took out a token from the counter. He closed the till and flipped it in the air, and he was back in hell. His first thought was that he really did not miss this place. His skin immediately felt uncomfortable at the unpleasant heat. That awful hum met his ears, and he huffed. He didn't have to be here long. In and out. He quickly miracled his appearance to become a long black trench coat and swooping hat, far more unobvious. He took a deep breath and left the closet he had appeared inside. He felt even more uncomfortable as he realized how densely packed the area was. Hell was busy, apparently. He placed his hands in his pockets and shoved his way through the masses as he orientated himself. Thankfully, he wasn't far from the pit, the lowest place in hell and where hellfire was festering. He travelled along the corridor, not far now. A few doors he could... Hey, you. Hasta? He quickly straightened up, letting out a grunt of recognition. Hopefully, he hadn't been recognized yet. What are you doing wandering around? You seem like a lower-ranked demon. No personality to your outfit. State your purpose. Crowley cleared his throat, forcing his voice to stay very low. I've been sent by Shax. Top secret and all that. Shax? She does often shift her paperwork to others. Hasta narrowed his eyes. But not to someone like you, Crowley smiled and snapped his fingers. Suddenly, Hasta was frozen and could not move. Ah well, subtlety could do one. He strolled forward, waving at Hasta as he cheerily walked on. There was the Hellfire Vault, guarded by 2 beefy-looking demons. They were easy enough to deal with. Right idiots most of the guards were. I need access to the vault. Important business, Shax's orders. Shax? One replied. Why does she need it? She's the Grand Duke of Hell and you're questioning her? He asked, raising his eyebrows. Well, not my head on the line. Grand Duke? You must be joking, the other guard chuckled. She's a duke, yes, but she'd never deserve that role. Still being decided, innit? Shax wasn't Grand Duke of Hell? Well, he supposed Beelzebub did tease the role, but they didn't exactly give it. He wondered who would actually get the role. Ah, well, you see, top secret. Crowley lowered his voice. The lower ranks haven't been told yet, but she's already been elected. It's just being kept under wraps and all that. Just while reasonable adjustments are made. The guards narrowed their eyes. You expect us to believe that? Well, I can tell Shax that you're not following her orders. He rolled his eyes. It's not me that's getting discorporated after all. The guard seemed hesitant for a moment, caught in a moment of decision, before turning and twisting the wheel to open the doors. Crowley stepped in and was immediately hit by intense heat. Not enough to burn him, since he was, still a demon, but still unpleasant. He took out a special glass bottle from his pocket and collected hellfire as he stood on the edge of the platform. It was full. He quickly closed it, placing it securely in his pocket, miracling it to have a zip and closing it up. Welcome to eternal punishment, arsehole. Crowley was surprised as he was shoved down into the hellfire. Suddenly he was falling, and at a rapid speed. But he laughed. Demons were never the brightest. He took out the coin, flipping it as he yelled the first place to come to his mind. Berkeley Square. In a mere moment, he was standing in the beloved park. He smirked to himself, sitting on the bench. Nice and easy. He took out the Hellfire and took out a different type of coin. He was about to send it up when he noticed a nice-looking flower bed near where he was sitting. He picked one of the flowers and tied it round the lid. God, he was getting stupidly sappy. He placed the coin on top of the bottle and tapped it twice. It suddenly disappeared, destined to appear in Aziraphale's office. He relaxed against the bench for a moment, laying his arms back against the chair as he lounged. He really did love the Nightingales song, he thought, as the gentle tune reached his ears. It's all up to you now, Angel. Chapter 15. Break-in. Heaven was in a spot of bother. Flames were spreading throughout heaven. Papers were all over the floor, and fire flickered upon them, and across abandoned desks. Muriel looked panicked, desperately looking for a fire extinguisher. Well, pretending to, at least. They hoped they were doing a realistic-looking job. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't get too close, you'll be discorporated. Michael turned to them, sneering. How on earth did you start a fire in heaven? No mortal possessions come up here. Or I suppose, used to come up here. I'm sorry, I had a candle with me. I forgot I had it in the bookshop. You know, candles, lighting up by themselves and all. Lighting up by themselves? Uriel asked, narrowing his eyes. Yes, aziraphale's candles. Candles he left in my possession. For me to use? Muriel replied, trying to convey a message. If anyone understood the want for revolution, it was Uriel. Right, yes, I've had a few of those, they sighed. We'll need some fire extinguishers. How long will they take you to get? Huh? Was this a code? Just like Jane Austen when she was writing books. Oh, I think it's too much of fire extinguishers. Aziraphale has gone to get some extra help from a higher up. Not that he's not high up, but, yeah. Uriel looked surprised for a moment. They supposed the Archangel wasn't expecting someone hired to get involved. It was risky. Yet still, Uriel didn't back out. He simply nodded. They turned to the other angels. Right, everyone stand back. We're not going to be able to miracle this away without a higher authority. Everyone began to back away, with lots of complaints and grumbles passed around. Uriel turned to Muriel, who was grinning happily at him. Uriel gave a small half-smile back. Aziraphale took a few deep breaths as he looked at Metatron's door. His hand was raised, but the gravity of the situation suddenly crashed down onto him. He couldn't help the slight tremble in his fist as he inched it closer to the door. For Crowley. He knocked firmly on the door. It took a few moments before the painfully familiar face of the Metatron appeared. He seemed thoroughly displeased. And to what, Aziraphale, do I owe this pleasure? Well, it's hardly a pleasurable occasion, he huffed. Half of heaven is on fire. None of us are strong enough to miracle it away either. It's too powerful. Metatron sighed. All right, I'm coming. Never get any peace in here. He left his office, but he still had his hand on the door as he turned to Aziraphale. Aren't you coming? He asked suspiciously. As much as I'd love to, I'm still thoroughly behind on the paperwork you assigned me. He feigned exhaustion as he placed a hand to his forehead. It really is such a hassle. But I suppose that's to be expected when you go AWOL. I still don't remember what happened, but a job is a job, I suppose. Quite. Metatron scrutinized him for a few moments before finally deciding everything was okay. He left, and Aziraphale walked in the opposite direction, hiding around the corner as he miracled Metatron's door to stay just a little bit open. As soon as Metatron had marched around the corner, he ran back to the office, opening the door, looking around as he stepped in. He was surprised to see that Metatron's room was so full of stuff. There was a desk, but also other various possessions, and earthly ones at that. A globe sat upon his desk, and papers were strewn about messily. More interesting, however, was a mannequin in the corner of the room wearing a crown and a cape. Was this Metatron's own? The more he looked around the room, the more he realized it was rather human-like. But heaven shamed mortal objects. Why was Metatron storing so many? Was he seriously enjoying their pleasures but not wanting anyone else to share it? Right, to the mission at hand. He began to look around the room. There were no obvious safes or cupboards around. It would be hidden somewhere much more subtle. Conveniently, Metatron had left his key on the desk. Clearly, he had rushed out to go sort out the fire. Aziraphale quickly took it, finding several documents. He ignored them. He just needed a complete guide to the Second Coming. No access to lower rank angels. Wait, if he burnt that, could he delay the Second Coming even further? He quickly took the document and carefully closed the drawer, locking it once more, miracling the folder to be smaller and fit into his pocket. Right, it clearly wasn't here. He then began to walk along the walls, feeling them for some kind of secret entrance. He began to panic as he couldn't find it there either. He was running out of ideas. This was his only chance. If he didn't get it now, who knows what could happen? Come on, you stupid angel, think. He huffed, turning on the spot, trying to figure out what to do, when he saw the globe again. He stepped closer to it, stroking the surface. The globe. Was there something about the globe? He studied the globe for a moment, before pointing towards a specific spot in London, the Globe Theatre. A small indent appeared, and he turned to see a door's silhouette. A shape fit for a feather appeared on where his finger had pressed. He took out Crowley's feather, placing it on the globe, and a secret entrance had appeared. He quickly stepped towards it, pocketing the feather again. A staircase appeared in front of him. He quickly hurried down them, and there, in the center of the room, was the Book of Life. He couldn't believe it. He hesitantly moved towards it, adrenaline rushing through his physical form. He stepped closer and carefully picked it up. Suddenly, a loud rumble emitted, and he turned to see the door slamming behind him. Okay, stay calm. He placed the book down on the pedestal, and the door opened again. So he couldn't leave with it. He took the bottle of hellfire out from his pocket, holding it incredibly carefully, before suddenly tipping it and pouring it onto the book. Horrible screams began to emit from it. Souls who'd been trapped inside. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to free you, bring you peace. But screams continued, and the book did not disappear. Aziraphale began to panic again. Now he couldn't touch the book or destroy it. Oh, why was everything so difficult? He stomped his foot, and the feather from his pocket slowly floated into the air. What if he carefully held the feather, holding it above the scalding hellfire. And dropped it. The feather was instantly consumed by the flames, and they turned black. The book seemed to be a little scorched now. It was just missing something. Slowly, he took out Raphael's wings and plucked one of the feathers. He held it above the flames and dropped it in. No change. Ah well, he should have expected as much. He was only a lowly angel. He couldn't. No. He couldn't. Raphael couldn't, rather. But he was Aziraphale, not Raphael. And Aziraphale and Crowley sounded so much better. He changed his wings to that of his own and took one of those feathers, dropping it into the flames. Now, white began to mix into it, creating a gorgeous, swirly pattern of white and black. The book was finally burning. Quickly, Aziraphale miracled the Second Coming file to full size from his pocket and threw it into the flames. The screaming quelled, and out of the fire came white and black spirits, glowing beautifully, an aura of peace surrounding them. Aziraphale suddenly found himself overwhelmed by a sense of love and the urge to cry. Lifetimes appeared in front of him, memories, some happy, some sad, but all absolutely beautiful. Stories written out of this lifetime, feelings, emotions, bonds, life, death, all encased in the book, finally free. Life truly was beautiful. And finally, the book was gone. Souls were at peace. He and Crowley were free. He couldn't help the tears suddenly cascading down his face, and somehow he laughed at the same time. He quickly rushed to the door, happy to finally be out and feeling suddenly free. Each step he was reminded of all his happy memories with Crowley, all the pain and suffering the two had gone through, and then all the new ones he'd make. Oh, he was going to smother Crowley with affection, tell Crowley how special he is, gorgeous he is, and how oh so precious his demon was. He was practically bouncing up the step. They would have the best dinner at the Ritz. They could celebrate. They could... Going somewhere? Metatron. Chapter 16. Captured. Aziraphale followed Metatron without a word. He knew he'd been caught, that it was too late. Nothing he said would help him now. At least the Book of Life was out of the question. No matter how he was punished, it would be worth it. Still, he wished he could travel to his bookshop, but his hands were cuffed with miracle-blocking pure light. You know, all you had to do was do what you were told, Metatron scolded. Aziraphale was surprised by the lack of ferocity to it. Just go along with everything, not complain. Everything would have worked out perfectly for you, nice and easy. Why must you be so disobedient? Only God knows how we'll clean this up. Aziraphale chose to remain silent. Look, if you want to remain in heaven, you better come up with a damn good excuse. Stay in heaven? He scoffed in reply. I would never wish to stay in a place like this. Do you not understand the seriousness of the situation? Scolded Metatron. I am just as menacing without the Book of Life. A weapon is only as strong as its wielder, you know. Right, he replied. So what will it be? Torture? You're going to destroy my desk? Curse my name? Because I assure you, if by trial you are found guilty, Metatron interrupted, then you will be classed a fallen angel by decree and shall be punished as such. Falling? Aziraphale was going to fall? He'd thought about it before, but he denied himself the thoughts as soon as they arrived. Now they were real and very close. And well, though he was, of course, a little nervous, he also found some strange sense of relief. That he'd be free for good from heaven. He'd be truly free. God, Crowley would scold him if he heard these thoughts. Then again, Crowley would be practically foaming at the mouth if he found out how heaven was planning to treat his angel. Aziraphale sighed. No matter how hard he tried, somehow he always ended up hurting Crowley in some way, shape, or form. This would be the last time. He was sure of it. He'd find their peace. Aziraphale was brought into a coliseum. Angels were already gathering inside it. This was fast. How had Metatron even managed this? He could even see two very high-ranking angels, principalities, near the front, their eyes cold and calculating. He supposed they had to be if they survived a role like that for so long. Metatron stood beside Aziraphale, his arms in front of him in a tidy fashion. Dear angels, I appreciate you gathering here with such haste. I shall be sure to put in a special word with God. He then gestured to Aziraphale. As you can see, we have had a slight incident. The Book of Life has been destroyed. Suddenly, the angels erupted in chatter. One of the principalities tried to stand up in outrage, but the other placed a hand on their arm. Both returned to a formal position, but the one who attempted to stand seemed to still be on edge. As terrible as this is, Metatron continued, miracling his voice to sound a lot louder, we must still give Head Archangel Aziraphale a fair trial. He is, after all, one of our higher ranks, and has clearly made a difference here in heaven during his time here. Therefore, to start, stop! Everyone suddenly turned to see a small angel standing in the doorway as the doors flew open to reveal Muriel? Muriel, what are you doing? This is a trial! Aziraphale felt thoroughly on edge. Something was wrong, very wrong. Why had Muriel suddenly burst in here? There was no reason to risk their life like this. Even this was likely a crime. You're holding a trial for the wrong person. Muriel's eyes met Aziraphale's, and they hardened. The destruction of Metatron's book? It was all orchestrated by me. That's right, I did it. Right. You, a minuscule angel, planned this? Forgive me for... Metatron began. Yes, I did it. And this is exactly why. You people all disrespect me all the time and all my other angel friends. Muriel's tone was firm to everyone save Aziraphale, who knew them well enough to know that they were nervous. So I started a fire to distract you all, and manipulated Aziraphale by poisoning his hot chocolate, yes. Ask anyone, it clearly came from my desk. Metatron's eyes narrowed, clearly deep in thought. No, this couldn't go ahead. He couldn't let Muriel take the fall for this. No, it's all of my own accord. I had full agency. Well, I believe it makes sense, Metatron frowned. No, what do you... Play along. This stupid angel may have gotten you out of this, Metatron murmured under his breath. Aziraphale was stunned. My fellow angels, I do believe this silly angel is telling the truth. As you well know, low-ranking angels are to stay on Earth during the Second Coming. Unsurprisingly, I found this document destroyed as well. Yells of complaint began to erupt again. Whilst I know this is not ideal, I'm sure we can sort it. Regardless, I do believe it is fairly certain that, Muriel here is the real culprit. Wait a minute. A voice cut through the various sounds of displeasure throughout the room. Uriel, there's no evidence for this. They deserve a fair trial, surely. Regardless of intelligence, they're still a fellow angel. Aziraphale smiled fondly at Uriel. Uriel's gaze, however, was fixed on Metatron. Ah, Uriel. Uriel raised his eyebrow as Metatron addressed him. You have been here for long enough. You know how the hierarchy works. You don't have time for empathy towards a rebellious angel. Surely you understand that. But they're not guilty, Aziraphale cried. I haven't drunken anything recently, let alone one served by Muriel. I haven't been poisoned. Metatron nodded his head towards Muriel, and they were quickly cuffed. Their calm composure suddenly broke, and Aziraphale could see the fear in Muriel's eyes. Leave them alone! What are you? He raged. Your Raphael form is locked behind those cuffs, so don't even try it, Metatron drawled as Muriel was dragged away. Don't worry, we'll get you a nice comfortable bed while the poison washes out of your system. Only then can we prove your innocence. Two angels grabbed Aziraphale by each arm, and he struggled desperately, thrashing against them. No, leave them alone, it's not their fault! His cries were left unheard as he was dragged away, and the council of angels began to dissipate, gossip hiding the truth in their minds. Chapter 17. Breakout. Aziraphale sat alone in his cell, silent. He had tried yelling and cursing at the guards, but all he had achieved was the appearance of a madman. He was beginning to get a headache from the bright light within the cell. He had hoped, at least in here, he'd have some peace from heaven's constant luminescence, but no. He was currently seated on a bed seemingly made from clouds. It wasn't as comfortable as you'd think, same as everything in heaven. The holiness was a lie. He could have no doubt now. He was so focused on his thoughts that he didn't hear the clipping of shoes down the corridor. The shadow fell upon his face, and he looked up to see a face he had grown to hate thoroughly. Metatron. What do you want? He asked, in a low voice. Aziraphale, you treat me with such contempt. Am I not the one who has freed you from damnation? Metatron asked, with sickly kindness. If it weren't for me, I'm not convinced you'd have already fallen. You should be grateful to Muriel. Muriel! Aziraphale suddenly stood up. Are they okay? Are they safe? Have they... fallen? They're in their cell, reflecting on what they've done, Metatron drawled. Come the break of dawn, they will fall. Such is the punishment for their crime. But they didn't do it, he cried. And you are smart enough to know that they aren't capable of this. Of course I know, Metatron replied smugly. But the rest of heaven will listen to whatever I say. They have to. Therefore, if I say they did it, then they did it. You maintain your innocence, Aziraphale. Your head archangel. You could have this too. You've made a mistake, but this is fixable. Aziraphale grit his teeth, but then he feigned defeat, dropping his shoulders. If he wanted any chance of getting Muriel out of this safely, he needed his freedom back, even if only temporarily. All right, fine. What do you need from me? How do we cover this up? We'll deal with it once Muriel has fallen. Metatron narrowed his eyes. Forgive me for not trusting you, but you did just burn the Book of Life. Quite frankly, I don't understand how you did it, but it's done now. I doubt God will give me another, else that Muriel would have been written out of it already. Only now it dawned on Aziraphale just how bad things could have been if he had failed. Would Muriel still have put themselves forward like this? Would Crowley be involved as well? Yes, things could be worse. He could still work with this. Well, could you at least undo these shackles? The cell is already blocked from any miracles. They are thoroughly uncomfortable. Please? Fine, Metatron sighed. I don't owe you any favors. In fact, you owe me many. However, heaven still respects its archangels. They won't be impressed if they found out you were left like this. Metatron swiped his hand, and suddenly Aziraphale's wrists were free. He rubbed them, glad for the sensation to be gone. It wasn't exactly painful, but it was rather uncomfortable, like being a little too close to a campfire but not touching it. He was glad to be free of them. Try anything, Metatron sneered, and not even I can excuse you. Metatron left, and Aziraphale watched him go, a blank expression on his face. The moment Metatron turned the corner, Aziraphale searched his cell for something thin and pointy. Ah! But he was a fool! Quickly, his wings sprung out, and he plucked one feather out. You see, when he was trained to be a magician, one thing he was taught was how to escape any lock. And lucky for him, heaven was just about lazy enough, and not used to prisoners, that they still had a fairly rudimentary lock. He squeezed his arm through the bar and began wiggling the feather into the mechanism. Let's hope this time goes more successfully than his water tank trick. Crowley had banned Aziraphale of performing anything of the sort after that. Finally, he heard a click. The moment he stepped out of the cell, he felt his familiar angelic powers returning to him. Right, he had to rescue Muriel. No, he had to get them out of trouble completely. If the punishment was falling, then he'd bravely accept it. Still, he should at least tell Crowley what was going on. Perhaps he'd conveniently leave the whole falling part out of it. Crowley would be worried sick by this point, he assumed. He owed Crowley a bit of peace at least, show Crowley that he was okay. Quickly, he snapped his fingers, and his form slowly changed from being on heaven to being on earth. In the bookshop. Crowley, But then he cut himself off as he noticed Crowley, passed out asleep on the chair, a bottle of alcohol clutched to his chest. Ah. He was clearly stressed from all this. Aziraphale didn't blame him. Crowley had been treating him so kindly the last few days. Perhaps he should have been doing more, showing his appreciation more. He stepped a bit closer, careful not to knock anything. There were papers scattered across the floor. He reached down and picked one up. It was the letters they had shared via Muriel. Crowley really held them so dear. Goodness, he really didn't deserve Crowley. Crowley, who loved him so deeply and sincerely, who was gentle and kind, bragged about how cruel he was when deep down, Crowley was the kindest soul Aziraphale had ever come across. He stepped closer and gently brushed some of Crowley's hair back that was resting upon the demon's forehead. Oh, how he loved this demon. He leant down, leaving a soft and quick kiss on the top of Crowley's head. He would allow himself a moment of peace. Before it happened. I am sorry, dear. He looked around for paper and pen and found a stack resting on the table beside Crowley. He smiled softly as he realized that there were many failed attempts at letters. He hadn't even considered how much thought had gone into those wonderful letters. Well, Crowley always had struggled with showing affection this way, but perhaps letters were giving them the outlet he needed. How sweet. He found a plain piece of paper and quickly scrawled a note upon it. Book of Life destroyed. Just have some things to sort out in heaven. Won't be long. Lots of love, Aziraphale. P.S. Each letter of yours is perfect. He sighed, walking towards the bookshop door and turning to Crowley once more. This was the last time they'd see each other whilst technically on opposite sides. After this, they'd be on the same side. There wouldn't be any need for the stress of our side, for they'd be on the same one either way. Both safe, both happy, both at peace. Oh, what hard work peace was. He sighed, exiting the bookshop and appearing back in heaven once more. Aziraphale appeared in heaven once more, racing to the cells. He had to dodge to the side as swarms of angels were already searching. He needed to be quick. He dodged behind pillars, letting the angels desperately run past. He was about to enter the cells when suddenly Uriel stopped in front of him, blocking his entrance. Uriel, Aziraphale spoke in a low tone. I am begging you. I will hand myself over. But I cannot let an innocent angel suffer for my crimes. Save it, Uriel replied firmly. I'm not going to catch you. Look, ever since you've been here, heaven has been a better place. Heaven has been changing. Suppose I have respect for you, in a way. Even more so that you're willing to sacrifice yourself for a low-ranking angel. If you respect me in any way, shape, or form, he pleaded, then you would let me go and save them. Uriel narrowed his eyes for a moment, scrutinizing, before stepping to the side, out of the way. Aziraphale smiled, nodding to them, before sprinting through. He checked the cells. All empty, empty, empty. The sound of quiet sobbing sent a chill down his spine. Muriel. He somehow sprinted even faster, desperate to save them. He arrived at the cell and was horrified by the sight. There was Muriel, but not in a good state. Their wings were out, there were a few patches splattered with blood, feathers noticeably missing. Muriel! Oh, what have they done to you? Muriel turned to Aziraphale, tears flooding from their eyes as they ran over to him, proceeding to hug him. He hugged them back, stroking their back gently. Oh dear, it's okay now. They can't hurt you whilst I'm here. They sobbed. I just wanted to help, to make a difference, to stop that dictatorship you talked about, but heaven is so mean. I know. It really is a cruel place. But you don't have to stay here any longer, he soothed. I'm going to open this gate and get you out of here. No, they suddenly cried, stepping back. Then they'll catch you, and they won't stop hunting me down, and... Muriel, dear, Aziraphale looked them directly into their eyes. I am only going to tell you this once, and you do not tell Crowley. There is a solution to this. I am going to take full blame for my actions, and I'm going to fall. But after that, we'll have peace, safety. It's going to be okay. But falling hurts. Crowley told me it really, really hurts. You'll burn. Their sobs had been replaced with a voice full of fear. And you won't be an angel anymore. You'll be different, and you'll be in hell. Don't you worry, he smirked. Hell will leave me alone. They are well aware they cannot destroy me, and they also hate the Book of Life. I'll be commended. Muriel shook their head. No, you can't. Aziraphale looked at them with soft eyes. Now you listen carefully. You aren't going to fall here. I will not let you suffer for my crimes, for that would make me just as bad as the angels here. You are an absolutely wonderful soul, and you have many more wonderful things to do. I will not let you throw that away. Heaven doesn't deserve your kind soul, and it certainly doesn't deserve to desecrate you as such. So you listen to me now. He looked eye contact with them. You are going to get out of here safely, and you're going to live a happy existence. You hear me? They nodded, and Aziraphale miracled the cell open. Muriel stepped out, tears still in their eyes. They quickly embraced Aziraphale in a hug once more. Thank you. No, thank you, dear, for giving me faith in angels once more. And then Muriel disappeared into gold dust as they were sent to the bookshop, an untraceable miracle upon them. Crowley would look after them. Quickly, angels rounded the corner. Metatron was at the front of them, rage on his face. Aziraphale smiled devilishly at them before releasing his Raphael form. "Hear me now, angels," he boomed. "Muriel is gone and dealt with. You seriously think a small angel like them could fool an archangel like me?" Metatron raised his arm in front of his eyes as a gale began to blow towards the angels. Lightning began to strike around him. "I am Raphael, and I am an archangel. I destroyed the Book of Life and the plans for the Second Coming. I am the powerful one." Suddenly, he returned to his regular form and smiled pleasantly, clapping his hands. "Now, will one of you lovely angels cuff me?" No. "Now, will one of you lovely angels cuff me?" Chapter 18. The Fall. Aziraphale's face was expressionless as he was marched through the tunnel. He would hold his head high, right until the end of his angelicness. He would not tremble, he would not show fear, he would not let them have satisfaction. Suddenly, he was going up some steps, and the familiar light of heaven gave way for the burning light of a new dawn. He squinted for a moment at the sudden change. Slowly, he began to adjust, and he realized he was heading to a new kind of Colosseum. His eyes slid from side to side, but his head did not move. The trial grounds were nothing compared to this. It glowed a gentle white, with the sky above them. There were so many angels he could never hope to count. There was even a row of dominions. Well, he was glad to know he was so popular. Finally, he stood in the center. There was Metatron, looking thoroughly disappointed. Angels were watching silently, not even discussing with their peers. He'd much rather they yelled and hollered. Yet when he glanced over, he saw something strange. Some angels seemed to be showing sympathy, almost respect. His lips curved up in a small smile. At least he was going down in the blaze of glory. "Aziraphale, you fool!" Metatron spoke in a low voice to him. "I laid everything out for you, for Raphael. It was so simple. How could you fail so miserably?" "Dumb luck, I suppose," he responded cheerily. Metatron sneered before turning to address the crowd. "Angels of heaven, we are gathered here today to witness the fall of Aziraphale, who has undeniably admitted his guilt in the destruction of the Book of Life and the private documents of the Second Coming. In doing so, he has committed great sin and acted against the will of the Almighty." Aziraphale could hear his heartbeat. He had prepared for this. He was ready. But was he? Standing here, knowing any moment it would happen. He was terrified. He had put on a brave face, but deep down, he hurt to know that the precious innocent angel he had protected in his heart for so long would soon be burnt to a crisp. Such was the price of peace. "If anyone has any objections, speak now." "Yeah, I do." Aziraphale's eyes widened and turned to see none other than Crowley himself. How on earth did he get up here? Muriel must have told him. Oh, that angel was very sweet, but couldn't keep a secret, apparently. "Crowley, what are you?" "Well, you see, Your Honor," Crowley mocked. No, sorry. "Well, you see, Your Honor," Crowley mocked, addressing Metatron. "This whole self-sacrificial business is my job, and I rather enjoy it, so if you could just release my angel." "Foul demon," yelled Metatron. "You are a fallen angel. You have no right to desecrate. Blah, blah, blah. You angels are all so boring. At least you got a better service than when us lot fell, hey, angel?" Crowley strolled over to Aziraphale, miracling away the cuffs around Aziraphale's wrists. "Right, shall we go then?" Aziraphale was stunned for a moment, unsure what to say. Then he furrowed his eyebrows, looking like a peacock with ruffled feathers. "Crowley, you don't understand. If I fall, then heaven will finally leave us alone. They can't hurt us anymore. They have no reason to." His expression then softened. "If I don't, they'll hound us and Muriel until someone is punished. I chose to destroy the Book of Life to protect us, and I shall foot the bill. Let me do this for us." Nah, Crowley smirked. Don't feel like it. All that stuff is just boring. We've dodged it before. We'll just go hide away somewhere. Come on, let me tempt you. There was a sad look in Aziraphale's eyes. We can't just run away all the time. We have to face it now. One last push. Crowley growled, turning around a bit and looking at the sky in frustration. He suspected a string of curses were going through the demon's mind right now. Angel, you don't understand what it's like to fall. It really bloody hurts. You don't saunter vaguely downwards, you plummet. And there's nothing pleasant waiting for you at the bottom. You say you're doing this for me, right? Then don't do it. Don't make me suffer watching you fall. Crowley's voice was pleading, and he felt as if his heart was about to shatter into a million pieces. So vulnerable, so pleading. He was reminded of that day in the bookshop. He just wanted to... I just want to protect you. Why won't you let me? He cried desperately. Because I love you too much to let you suffer the way I did. Crowley extended his hand. Choose me this time. Choose us. It was so blunt, so real. Should he really just leave? Could they? There were so many angels here, they barely stood a chance. Logically, it wouldn't work. They wouldn't make it more than a few steps. Oh, to hell with logic. Aziraphale stepped forward to take Crowley's hand. They could do it. They could... I condemn you to fall, bellowed Metatron. Aziraphale's eyes widened as he looked at Crowley. Crowley's expression was suddenly full of pure horror, an expression he had never seen on the demon and wished to never see again. He felt the floor give way, and he didn't even have the chance for his wings to spring as he was falling down, down. Suddenly, he felt a hand on his wrist. He looked up to see Crowley kneeling on the surface, reaching down to grasp Aziraphale. He could feel a strong pull forcing them down. Aziraphale's wings were now out, but they could do nothing against the force of the pull. He had no choice. Crowley, you have to let go or you'll fall too. You've already fallen once. Who knows what will happen if you go twice? I've done it once, Crowley sneered. I can damn well do it again if needs be. Just use your wings. Crowley, that's not going to... Just do it for somebody's... No, for my sake. Aziraphale furrowed his brows and flapped his wings with as much force as he could muster. He had to fight. He couldn't give up. He could make it. He was going up. He landed roughly on heaven's floor. He had done it. Crowley, we... Horror flooded his senses as he realized Crowley wasn't there. No, he hadn't flown up. Crowley had propelled him up there. He rushed back to the ledge, desperate. Crowley was falling again. No! Aziraphale dove back down, using his wings this time to fly down to Crowley. Crowley was already unconscious, but outwardly didn't seem too damaged. As he got closer, he realized his wings were feeling significantly warmer than they were before. Were they going to... No, it didn't matter. He finally reached Crowley, cradling the demon's body as if it were life himself. To him, it was. He fought to fly upwards, not making any progress and still falling. He suddenly felt a burning sensation in his wings. He glanced over to see flames beginning to spark on them. He looked away, fighting back the pain as he fought to fly upwards, shielding Crowley from the effects of burning. Why couldn't he fly up? Right, Raphael could do this even if he couldn't. He desperately fought to transform his wings. Why weren't they coming out? Was the velocity too strong? He had to. Tears began to stream from his eyes as he realized how useless he was. Crowley was going to discorporate all because of him. Why couldn't he have just listened to Crowley? Why did he always think he was in the right? Why... Crowley moved a little, and Aziraphale was suddenly aware once more of the warmth protected within his arms. And for a moment, the flames of love drowned out those set on destroying his wings. The thoughts of regret and pain were replaced with memories. Memories of dining at the Ritz, their quiet nights at the bookshop, their magic act on Broadway, their drink in Rome, the little flowers Crowley had sent him, when they had confessed their feelings. Finally, Aziraphale smiled. His wings suddenly duplicated. Here were the wings of Raphael. He was exhausted now, but he had the chance. He had to keep fighting. He flapped his wings with more ferocity than before, a look of determination in his eyes. Finally, he was making some distance. He roared at the skies in defiance of heaven, in defiance of everyone. No one would take Crowley from him, ever again. Finally, they reached the surface, and Aziraphale stumbled a couple of times, landing on the floor but using his body to shield Crowley. He created an energy field around them, blocking out the erupting whispers of angels. He panted as he tried to regain his breath from exertion, his wings returning to the form of his own. But what was more painful was the unconscious demon in front of him. He rested Crowley's upper half on his lap, cradling Crowley, desperation edging at his voice. Crowley, Crowley, please wake up. We didn't fully fall. You must be fine, surely. Crowley. Tears flooded from his eyes. Had it all been for nothing? No, it couldn't be too late. It couldn't be. Coughs suddenly erupted from the demon, and a weak smile appeared on the demon's lips. Pretty impressive, Angel. Aziraphale let out a sob of relief and hugged Crowley tightly. Crowley hugged Aziraphale back desperately, his hands clinging to Aziraphale's jacket. But suddenly, Crowley let go and looked wildly at Aziraphale's wings. Angel, your wings, they're... burnt. Chapter 19. Revelations. Aziraphale turned a little as he pulled his wings forward. Crowley watched with anxiousness. Damn it, why hadn't he gotten here sooner? Now, Aziraphale's gorgeous wings had been sullied by the filth of heaven. Well, they're not fully burnt, and you're still here, so theoretically, I didn't completely fall. Can you feel them? Crowley asked gently. Well, I suppose I could try. Aziraphale placed his hands upon his wings, encouraging healing and repair. He seemingly had no luck. No, I suppose fall damage is from a higher authority than Head Archangel, if I still technically have that position. Do they hurt? He asked tentatively, gently caressing his angel's wings, being careful to avoid the charred part. Aziraphale seemed a little flustered at that. No, not too badly. That was a lie. A rather obvious one, too. I mean, as painless as burnt wings are. Aziraphale suddenly paused for a moment as he mentally checked his body for damage. I can still feel my halo, so this means we stopped falling just in time. Crowley sighed in relief. They were both okay, at least for now. You two really are the scum of heaven, two of the same. The two turned to see Metatron, looming there. Crowley stood, instantly full of rage, but found himself stumbling a little. He felt a hand against his back, steadying him. Aziraphale. Careful, dear, muttered said Angel under his breath. Even if we didn't fall, I'm sure it did a number on you. You're not in much better shape, he replied, quickly regretting the sharpness of his voice. Aziraphale, Head Archangel, was sentenced to fall. Regardless of how big you two think you are, you cannot interfere with the divinity and sanctity of heaven's punishments. Crowley chuckled. He could practically see steam coming out of the Metatron's ears. Yeah, sorry about that, didn't quite work. So, we'll just be on our way, he replied cheerily. Not so fast. Metatron placed a hand in front of him, and suddenly Aziraphale and Crowley were locked in some kind of bubble. He looked down to see a circle of ancient angelic scripture surrounding them. Damn it. Now, if I'm correct, then you cannot stand to fall again. Those awful wings of yours look thoroughly damaged. I suggest you say your prayers now. For a moment, Crowley couldn't think of what to do. He looked down at the scriptures, and they seemed to be handwritten by Metatron himself, meaning they need a very high-ranking angel to break it down. Come on, there must be some way to escape this. In a panic, he turned into a snake form, and a very large snake at that. He wrapped himself around the perimeter, hissing at Metatron, who stumbled back a bit. Hello, hello, hello! Make way, make way! Crowley turned to see Muriel walking towards them through the crowds. Metatron growled, but then his eyes widened in surprise. Crowley couldn't believe it either. Gabriel and Beelzebub. Hello, Crowley. Long time. Beelzebub tilted their head. Crowley narrowed his eyes in response. Calm down, we're here to help you. You're lucky this little angel has come to help you. Rather smart they are. They winked at Muriel, who smiled cheerily. He was sad to see Muriel's wings were still bandaged. Well, Aziraphale could probably heal them given the chance. More importantly, just why on earth were they here? I've come with a proposition. They stood fairly close to Metatron, rolling on the balls of their feet. Well, I don't really think you can disagree with it, but Gabriel said I should say it anyway to be polite. Gabriel cleared his throat. Oh, right, okay. So, the thing is, there was a super secret book Gabriel and Beelzebub found and asked me to decipher. It was a bit difficult to read until I realised it was ancient angelic scripture. I knew I'd read about it before, so I secretly snuck into heaven while everyone was busy and decoded it. What are you on about? Metatron sneered. Oh, sorry, but don't worry, I'm getting to it, they grinned. So, basically, heaven and hell weren't meant to be separated forever. Basically, you guys messed up about the whole eternity thing. It was technically meant to come after the second coming, but we might as well start it now. Eternity was never meant to be a big war. It was meant to be peace and unity. Crowley finally shrunk down, intrigued, and settled himself upon Aziraphale's shoulders, still protective. Beelzebub smirked, and he hissed at them. They rolled their eyes, their smirk not disappearing. Let me see that document clearly as forged. I can't give it to you, unfortunately. Can't risk you destroying it. It was now Crowley noticed the book safely in Gabriel's arms. Anyway, you can't destroy these two, if you want peace anytime soon, that is. Well, how do you get the supposed peace? Surely God would have told me, Metatron seethed. You haven't actually been talking to God, have you? Aziraphale suddenly spoke up. You've been trying to cover things up. I should have been punished a lot more than I was. Your actions haven't exactly been moral, have they? You don't know my relationship with the Almighty, Metatron cried. Where was this even found? Alpha Centauri, Gabriel finally spoke up. We went to the planet to live in a seclusion and found this book. It looks like it was cast away or something. We didn't have time to decipher it all, but what we got is pretty important. That book, it's clearly made of sin. Anything in it is sin, Metatron cried. No matter what it says about angels and demons, Angels and demons? Beelzebub raised their eyebrows. We hadn't actually mentioned that. Only peace. Do you know something about this book, Metatron? Metatron took a step back. No, nah, I'm just messing with you, Beelzebub chuckled. We already know you're involved. No, you have no evidence of such thing. Who would trust a demon? Gabriel raised his hand. Aziraphale did the same. Oh, fuck both of you. You two are... You, Metatron growled. Crowley hissed at him. Right, Muriel? Beelzebub gestures towards Muriel. Oh, yes, Muriel straightened up. Well, you see, heaven and hell are meant to be one. Each angel was destined to be with a fallen angel. God allowed them to sin to create balance. Heaven was to be good and holy, whereas hell was meant to be dark and evil. This would create theoretical equality. However, this wasn't quite true. Heaven had corruption in it and hell had goodness. However, when an angel and a demon surpass their expectations, can true equality be found, and therefore peace from their union. What do you mean union? Aziraphale asked. I could only translate part of it, but it was something about an earth tradition between an angel and a demon to unite all three levels of being. I'm not sure what it is, Muriel explained earnestly. Union? Oh, wedding, Aziraphale exclaimed. So the solution is... I will not let you do this. Metatron raised his hand. He was going to make them fall once more. Horror filled Crowley's senses. He quickly changed back into a bigger snake, trying to break through the barrier. Not now. Suddenly, Metatron could not move his arm. Crowley looked around to see Uriel, who had stepped past the stands and was standing near Metatron, raising his hand and using a miracle to hold Metatron's arm back. Suddenly, the minions swarmed forward, each restraining Metatron back. One of them swiped away the writing on the barrier, and Crowley and Aziraphale quickly stepped outside of it. Metatron looked almost feral. You awful angels! I was trying to protect you. We are the higher being. We deserve more. We deserve to reign supreme, to indulge in human desires, us and us alone. He threw his head back. God, you fiend! You awful creature! You forsake us to live alongside demons? Why must you hate us so? Finally, he collapsed as one Dominion swiped their hand. We'll deal with him, they uttered in a low voice. They then turned to Muriel. We expect a full update later. Muriel looked surprised for a moment before eagerly nodding. Finally, things calmed down, and Crowley returned to his humanoid form. Angels were swarming out of the stands. Aziraphale turned to Crowley. Right, Angel, how are we feeling about a wedding? Crowley smirked. He hoped he didn't look as absolutely nervous as he felt. I will tell you my feelings, Aziraphale took Crowley's hand, when you tell me yours. If we are to do something like this, it's because we want to. Heaven and hell be damned. Crowley was caught off guard by this. Choosing yourself over the greater good, Crowley teased. I'm impressed. He then placed an arm around Aziraphale's waist. Shockingly, though, I think my desires line up with heaven this time. You really did make a difference this time, Angel. Aziraphale chuckled. And I believe mine line up with hell's. Aziraphale then leant up and left a kiss on the demon's lip. Chapter 20. Bells of Heaven and Hell. Heaven and hell had been in a state of chaos. There was resistance on both sides to this new movement. Some were still thoroughly opposed to each other. We won't associate with them. Others believed the book to be false. It was brought here by traitors. How do we know it's real? But also, the rulers of heaven and hell were doing a rather good job at quelling it. Funnily enough, it was the lower ranks that were celebrating the success even more thoroughly. After all, they weren't set to be destroyed anymore in the Second Coming. Supposedly, the union of Aziraphale and Crowley would create an eternity without the need for destruction, through peace. But perhaps the most in a flurry about this was the couple in question. You see, wedding planning is a hassle for a mere human wedding, even with a year in advance. But these two had over 6,000 years of history, and only a day to prepare it. Sure, they could have had a much smaller affair, but that takes out all the flair from it, doesn't it? Thankfully for them, they had a little angel to help them and their two new angel and demon friends. Raphael was currently at the Ritz, trying to explain to the staff how perfect their evening must be. The plan was to have the initial ceremony on Earth and then a grand celebration upon the Falling Grounds, removing its history of punishment and cruelty and remaking it as a place of love and unity. And then, after all that, they would dine here together. They started all this together, and they'd end it so. Just them. Right, you must play this song upon our entrance, Aziraphale commanded, handing over some money. He had already forked over a small fortune to perfect everything. He had made sure everything was to be in place. They'd have the most romantic evening. Finally, mostly reassured, he returned to heaven for his suit fitting. Meanwhile, a particular demon was stuck in a jeweller's. He had insisted he would be the one to get the rings. He wanted them to be perfect. But then, all these rings seemed to be so incredibly boring. A plain band seemed much too simple for them. But then, would Aziraphale want a very eccentric ring? He rolled his eyes, leaning on the counter. Everything was always so difficult. It's not that he didn't want to marry Aziraphale. He had fantasized about it many times. But he had always pictured it so differently. A quiet candlelit dinner, or maybe a calm night at the bookshop. Not in the middle of heaven, right after all that. Once this was over, they'd finally have peace. No reason to hide. Sure, there'd still be controversy, but if the book was true, and it very likely was, then they'd be on the same side for good, and the other angels and demons would have to deal with it. He sighed, looking back at the rings again. But then he realized he'd been looking at it the wrong way. He'd always gone by his own terms, his and Aziraphale's terms. That wasn't going to change now. He picked out one silver ring and one dark-coloured ring and pocketed them. He'd do this his way. A few hours later, heaven was almost prepared for the wedding. The trial grounds had been tidied and decorated. Michael didn't see the point of it, so it was a good thing Muriel was put in charge instead. They didn't really understand much about human weddings, save for the little snippets in the books they'd read, so they were basing it on that. First, they'd left a daisy on each seat and a piece of paper with the marriage of Aziraphale and Crowley written on it. They weren't sure why humans liked to leave a piece of paper, but they wanted to do the best they could for their friends. They'd even managed to get a flower arch for the centre for the vows to be done, and put a few chairs near it for the front row. Aziraphale and Crowley were deemed to be closer friends. They were thrilled to find out they got one of those seats when they told Aziraphale. Crowley had even approved Gabriel and Beelzebub to sit there. What amused them the most, however, was that Metatron would be forced to watch the ceremony as well. It was deemed to be part of a just punishment for the foul angel, watching everything he fought to destroy thrive in front of him. Now he'd shown his true colours, he was the shame of the angelic realm. He was good to use an example as well. Now that angels and demons were going to be united, there was certainly to be some rebels. Oh well, that could be quelled. Finally, angels and demons began to file in. Gabriel and Beelzebub were the first to arrive, sitting in the designated chairs. Beelzebub seemed to be a little uncomfortable being so front and centre, but Gabriel was doing a good job of distracting them. Muriel was at the door greeting everyone. All three were dressed up in their finest clothes. "Is this the, wedding, was it?" one asked, seeming a little confused but quite excited nonetheless. "Yep, I'm welcoming everyone. It's common at weddings," they informed. "Oh, right," he extended their hand. "Thanks for welcoming me. I'm Eric." "I'm Muriel," they replied, shaking his hand. "Pleasure to meet you." He grinned, but was suddenly shoved out of the way as another demon became impatient and pushed past. He waved as he was pushed away towards the seats, and Muriel waved back before returning to their greetings. Crowley and Aziraphale would arrive much later. It was human tradition for the bride to walk down the aisle, but in this case there were two grooms. The two had contemplated one of them turning to their female forms, but they decided to stay in their current forms as it was the most comfortable for now. They would both walk towards the aisle from separate sides, symbolizing the unity of heaven and hell. This was their preferred way. Finally, the rows were full of angels and demons. Frustratingly, the angels and demons seemed to have segregated themselves to opposite sides, but that would be fine for now. They had no choice after this. "Right, remember, you bring these to us the moment Lekabel, the officiating demon, ask for them, okay?" Crowley commanded. Crowley handed over the cushion bearing the rings to Muriel, who nodded their head eagerly. The fate of the three realms rested on their hands. Oh, so exciting. "Yes, I've got it. Good luck," they replied, before leaving to return to their seat and prepare to bring the rings. Finally, Crowley was left alone in his room. He had chosen a nice, neat suit with a long and elegant tailcoat. He wore high-heeled boots with his outfit, adding a lovely aspect of class to his outfit. He had even changed his regular sunglasses for gem-studded ones. He wasn't quite comfortable yet sharing his vulnerabilities to the entirety of heaven and hell, but he'd remove them for Aziraphale. Finally, a bell began to ring. This was it. He took a few deep breaths and raised the curtains. Oh, damn, there was a lot of guests here. But then his eyes locked onto Aziraphale, also nervously peeking out of the curtains. And his heart melted. He slowly raised his trembling hands. He took his sunglasses, and he dropped them to the floor, stepping on them. He didn't need them. Not anymore. Not with Aziraphale. He took a deep breath and took a step forward. He kept walking. Aziraphale was walking towards him and looking stunning in a Victorian-era outfit. His angel was positively beaming. His anxiousness suddenly dissipated, and he walked forward proudly. His angel. His soon-to-be husband. Perhaps God wasn't as evil as he thought. Finally, the two met in the middle. Lekabel began reciting the traditional wedding speech, but neither of the two soon-to-be weds were bothered. They were too busy watching each other, nothing but love in their eyes. They didn't dare speak and interrupt, but they didn't need to. After more than 6,000 years of talking, they could finally just be, coexist, find their peace. "Please may you bring forth the rings so the grooms may do their vows," Lekabel called out. Aziraphale's eyes fell upon them, and he let out a small gasp. Crowley smiled softly at his angel's look of adoration. He had crafted them himself, using a miracle in his imagination. The black ring was Aziraphale's, in the shape of one wing. Crowley's was white, with a wing on the other side. Together, they created a heart shape, two halves of the same whole. Oh, Crowley, they're gorgeous. Crowley looked up, his hand extended for Aziraphale so he could put the ring on. Aziraphale obliged, his expression full of love. Crowley lowered their hands but didn't let go. Okay, I'm not the best of words. But, Angel, we've never been good with words. We've spent an eternity avoiding them. But also, I'd like to spend an eternity learning just how to love and to express it with you. There is no one I'd rather spend my immortal lifetime with than you, Angel. So I'll start us off with a few words. I love you. Raphael tilted his head a little as he smiled, a few tears dotted in the angel's eyes. He then raised the hands once more and placed the white ring upon Crowley's finger. He then kissed it and looked up to Crowley. Crowley, you have always been here for me, always willing to care for me, always willing to forgive. And I want you to know that I will always be here for you, whether you're an angel, a demon, or a human. You will always be more than enough for me, and I will try to be the absolute best I could ever be with you, because you deserve the world. Crowley smiled. Oh, Angel, how could I ask for more than perfection? And now, began Licorice, you are now husband and husband. You may now... Too late for that, as the two were already embraced in a loving kiss. They pulled away and pressed their foreheads against each other. They were to be together forever. Click. Suddenly, something felt different. They looked up. They were somewhere else. They weren't sure where, but they were. It seemed to be some kind of gently glowing room, and they appeared to be standing on clouds. Crowley kept his arms wrapped firmly around his angel as he looked around. Was it all a trick? Was it a lie? Was this just some grand form of punishment? No. They had just come to visit me. Who's there? Show yourself, Crowley yelled. Calm down, a voice rang out. Crowley suddenly froze, and Aziraphale gently pulled away, still holding Crowley's hand. God, form of a woman, suddenly appeared, smiling and gentle. This was far from the cruel image Crowley was used to, the one who casted him away. Yes, it is me. I have come to congratulate you personally. Come to us, Crowley sneered. Where the hell are we? You clearly brought us here. I do apologize, she chuckled. Sorry, it's been so long since I've spoken to someone properly. Someone who speaks to me as an equal, not someone who treats me as a deity. But you're God, asked Aziraphale. Don't you want people to treat you as, well, God? You'd think that, wouldn't you? She stepped closer. That's what I wanted, I think, when I first came to be. But being the only one on your level, well, it's so incredibly lonely. I wished I had learnt that lesson earlier. Yeah, well, you cast half of us angels away. Not the best conversation starter, hissed Crowley. You're right, it isn't, she sighed. And I spent so long trying to fix it. When all along, I needed you too. You see, I cast away my most precious creations, my angels, including you, Crowley. But you'll have to forgive me for taking favourites, but the most dear to me was Lucifer. Lucifer is the reason I cast you all away. I came too close to him. He showed me affection, made me feel love, so I cast him away. And then he built his own revolution. I didn't realise how far it'd go. I couldn't let that happen again. Any angel that had love for another, each angel was cast away through my own anger and sadness. I thought this meant their hearts were tainted, yet I didn't realise it was I who had tainted them in truth by causing them to suffer in hell for so long. I didn't realise only true equality could come through darkness and light together. Oh, boo-hoo! Your mood swings don't justify what you did to us all, yelled Crowley. You're right, it didn't. I still haven't justified it. But I'm not searching for forgiveness. I just wished to fix my mistake. So I gave the gift of healing unto you, Aziraphale, in the form of Raphael, only to be unleashed when the time of need was greatest. Metatron believed that would be the war to end all wars. He couldn't understand love. When I gave him the book of my mistakes and how to fix them, he cast them away to the stars. where Beelzebub and Gabriel found it. They only found it through their decision of love. With this failing at the time, I made it so you two could keep meeting. You two who changed the norms. You never expressed true hatred for each other, ever. You showed true, deep love. And beyond that, you tried to heal Earth, too. You remember Jane Austen, yes? Around that time, I was presenting as a male. It was the most respectable thing, and that's what humans would respect me as. But you helped me introduce women to the literary world, and you gave women power. And for once, I felt I would be a respectable woman god. I knew you two were the key. Heaven and hell are now unified through your love. Our love is not for you to decide or for your advantage. It is our own, Aziraphale cried. Yes, you're right, God smiled at them. Your love is your own, and that's what everyone needed. Your love was not from my divine intervention. It was yours and yours alone that saved everyone. I swear I shall not let any more angels fall. It is why I left Metatron where he was, despite his disobedience. For I regret my mistakes. Suddenly, someone appeared in the distance. God laughed a little. Speak of the devil, she began. And he shall appear, replied Lucifer, raising his eyebrows and folding his arms. Right, you two. I have some unfinished business. But I swear to you, I will no longer intervene in your lives. As your wedding present, I grant you freedom. Do you wish to continue in your role, Aziraphale, as Raphael, to heal heaven? It is a kind gift, Aziraphale begun, but my life is not yours to use. I do not wish to continue this way. However, I do believe there is another angel who'd love to have such a job. God smiled, then suddenly a necklace with a large stone appeared around Aziraphale's neck. Then so be it. This stone contains the power of Raphael. It is yours to protect and to pass on as you please. Aziraphale nodded. God turned to Crowley. For what it's worth, she began, I truly am sorry. I forgive you, Crowley replied, his voice much calmer than before, but still with an aspect of malice. But I will not forget. I did not expect as much, so I thank you, God nodded. I shall send you back to your prior locations. Actually, Aziraphale interrupted. There is somewhere special I'd like you to send us. God smiled. Then it shall be. The last thing the now husband saw was God and Lucifer holding hands. That night, at the Ritz, an angel and a demon were dining. No one knew who they were, but they could tell the two were very much in love. They clinked their glasses together, smiling. To us, one spoke. To us, the other agreed. A nightingale sang that night. Chapter 21. Ineffable Husbands, Epilogue. Ready to go? Crowley called out as he leaned on the doorway. Yes, just coming, Aziraphale called out, coming towards the door, a picnic basket balanced on the inside of his elbow. Muriel was following with drinks. He cheerily walked to the car. Crowley gave him a quick kiss on the cheek as Aziraphale passed him, the angel placing the picnic basket in the boot and letting Muriel follow suit with the bottles. Soon, everyone was in the car as they drove away. Certain night, the night we met. You two always play this song. Do you really just like it that much? Muriel asked curiously. Oh, yes, Crowley smiled. It's my absolute favourite. Oh, replied Muriel. But, can we listen to one of those Queen songs? Well, Crowley smirked, since you're twisting my arm. Muriel knew better than to comment they couldn't reach Crowley's arm from the back. Ooh, lover boy. Oh, you and your beatbox, Aziraphale rolled his eyes. You love it, Crowley teased. Not particularly, Aziraphale smirked. You're lucky that I do love you. You're right, Crowley chuckled. I am lucky indeed. Finally, they arrived at a little grassy park with flowers bordering the perimeter. Crowley pulled out the picnic blanket and set it down, and Aziraphale began setting up the food. Muriel was placing the cutlery and the serviettes to Aziraphale's request. They were always happy to oblige. Crowley was never massively partial to food, so instead he laid down, his head resting on aziraphale's lap. He did hold a glass of red wine in his hand, at the threat of murder if he spilt it on the freshly washed picnic mat. Muriel was indulging in some cake. Aziraphale was glad he introduced them to it, and Aziraphale had his eyes closed, taking in the warmth. His necklace glinted in the sun. Angel, Aziraphale opened his eyes to look at Crowley. When are you going to give them the necklace? You know you can't guard it forever. No, you're right. Aziraphale glanced up at Muriel, who was happily eating their cake. One day I'll give it to them. But for now, they're quite happy eating cake, and I think that's enough for now. Fair enough. Crowley closed his eyes, and I'm quite happy resting here. Aziraphale chuckled. I love you, Crowley. Love you too, Crowley replied, and your very comfortable lap. And so it all ends where it began, in a garden. What? I told them I wouldn't interfere. Doesn't mean I can't watch.